Hello everybody. Those of you familiar with the channel will know that I have been preparing an Africa Landcruiser for its first expedition, which is about to take place. It's 2024. That means 40 years that I've been exploring the world's most remote places in four-wheel drives, in association with the Overland Workshop. I decided that before I go on my Africa expeditions, I should look through the sequence of events that have brought me to this point. And I got so excited watching them that I had to bring them to you. So what I've done now is I've compiled one video. It's about 3 hours long. All of the highlights. Firstly, we bought the vehicle, of course, in Pretoria. This is February 23. And we drove it all the way down to Cape Town. We had a little adventure, and then we worked on it at Snymans 4x4 and Paul Marsh. We all got together. Terrain Tamer supplied all the parts for it, and we've built ourselves a magical Overlander. Since then, the guys in Cape Town have now built a camper conversion for me, and those videos are about to be released. The rear bar, the roof rack, the bull bar, the electrical systems, everything built into the vehicle. That's about to come now, but I wanted to bring this to you because what we did was amazing, and it proved to me something that is the reason why this one was so successful, whereas the 2019 Landcruiser 105, although successful, conclusion was really a mess when we bought it, is we learnt this fundamental rule. When you're buying a used four-wheel drive, you want it unmodified, you want it stock standard. The fewer things fitted to it, the better. And this one, while it had 500,000 kilometers on it, it was virtually stock. And because nobody unskilled had touched it, actually it was in really good condition. So this video now is our backstory, and expect immediately following this video a whole series of new videos, which includes what? The Troopy never ever fails to give me a warm fuzzy. Never fails. And it's mine.
Excuse me.
It's ours.
It's ours.
Okay.
Let's priorities.
Yeah. Happy wife, happy life. I have her trained so well, as you can see. It's taken years of work to get her trained this efficiently.
So do you want to tell us what we're doing?
Okay, handover. I'm in Pretoria. This is the Landcruiser, the first time I've seen it. This is actually my third Landcruiser that I bought blind. And my fourth Troopy. The first one I purchased in 2011. Co-designed the familiar lift-up roof conversion with Alucab in 2011 and 12. Then 2017 in Australia, a V8. Then in 22, again in Australia, another V8. And now here in Pretoria, February 2023, South Africa. And by far the highest mileage of any vehicle I've owned, 500,000 kilometers. It's always a bit risky, but this one we did have checked and by somebody who's very experienced, so now I'm seeing it for the very first time.
You've been in Dubai for too long. You came round to the wrong side of the car.
I did. I came to the wrong side of the car. I did. It's going to be tatty. It's got 500,000 kilometers on it, but the tatty bits aren't the important bits, because so much of it we're going to get right as we build it. So right. This one. Okay, that's working. That's fine. We have to do something about the door handle there. So I'm not sure what this vehicle was used for, but obviously we've got the entire thing anyway. Really works quite clean actually. I mean, it's a lot of stone chips on the, but here the rust isn't a big problem here, you see. So it's stone chips. That's easy to sort out. I wonder how noisy that roof rack's going to be. It's a front runner rack. They are notoriously noisy. HZ. Touch is a bit soft, a little bit tatty. We're going to have fun. We're now going to drive it down to Cape Town and begin the work. We are going to have some fun. It's too late now, I paid for it. So,
yep.
It's a fait accompli.
As long as you're happy. Happy husband, happy life. I know it doesn't rhyme, but it still applies.
Yes, it does apply. These seats are good. These seats are very good. I think they must have been rebuilt. Oh, I'm missing those. Missing all the knobs from there. Okay, not serious. Missing the ashtray. I've got an ashtray. What are your impressions?
Good. Very positive.
Yeah?
Very positive.
It is, eh?
Yeah.
It's positive.
Yeah, it looks like it's in reasonable nick for a vehicle that's as old as this.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take it.
Perfect. Bit too late, but you've got it.
I know. It is too late.
Awesome. So we just replaced the spare wheel because we noticed this morning that the tube that's inside got a tear mark and it was repaired previously, so you can't repair it again and again.
Okay.
So that was brand new. I spoke to Paul about the rest of it. He said he's going to sort it out for you once you're down there.
We're going to do a lot of work. We're going to.
He told me it's quite a big project.
Yeah, it's a big project.
Yeah, it's the second one I'm doing through Paul.
Okay.
Yeah, so he actually helps a lot of people with the Troopies, with the rebuilds and
the
overlanding and so on and so forth.
Okay, you're rolling.
Yeah, I'm rolling.
You are rolling. Okay. Right, you know, I have absolutely no idea where to go, and there's something big on the bonnet.
Well, I suppose I should get some nav going.
You should get some nav going. Although, actually, in one, I might be able to nav without it. Here's the N1, and there's my wallet. I've got some South African rands in the wallet. I'll put that there for you.
Okay, camera's rolling here. Turn right.
Well, we just got to keep it rolling because, hell, I got to get a feeling of it, whether it, you know, it's a bit loose, the doors are a bit loose, the doors are a bit rattly, and the steering wheel is really shiny, but I've got a solution to that. My steering wheel that I took off my V8 Troopy, I put in my luggage. It bolts straight on. It's exactly the same, and it's brand new.
So that's what you're doing tonight?
Maybe. Let's get some. Right, central locking.
We need to go past a shop and buy some sweet smelling to hang here because it
Smoker's car.
Oh yeah.
Definitely a smoker's car.
It don't smell so good.
Yeah, some rattles and things we can sort out. I'm going to take this vehicle, it's got 500,000 kilometers on it, and I'm going to, it's our Africa vehicle. We're going to be using it for long distance expeditions in Africa, so we have to make sure it's reliable, which means we have to do a very thorough mechanical overhaul, which Paul, Marsh and Snymans are going to be doing at Snymans 4x4 in Cape Town. To get down there, Gwen and I are going to be driving it all the way down there. We're going to go, and we're going to have a little trip in it. We're going to go the pretty scenic route, and the first thing we have to do though is just just some of the challenge, the comfort challenges that we're going to have to deal with, I'm going to deal with right now. One of them is I've ordered seat covers, which I'm going to go and fit right now. I need to go in one. This is here.
Do you want to tell me what's happening?
Yeah, we've got a problem already with the car. I can hear the fan belt slipping. Now, he mentioned that...
Turn left onto Meering Nord Road, then turn right.
They had loosened the fan belt because it was too tight, which immediately sounded odd to me that it was too tight. Anyway, so it's too loose. And it whistles as I hit 3,000 RPM. It whistles.
And I can smell.
And
it smells very hot.
Turn right onto Lindburn Road.
It's slipping.
So we're pulling over, and we're going to send. They're going to come with some tools because we've got no tools in this car, and they're going to come and give us a hand. I hope this isn't going to set the pattern for the rest of the trip.
Okay, we're back in the car. Slight glitch. Now, those of you who, I'll give you the camera, those of you who remember the Range Rover thing, when I collected the Range Rover, I drove 5 kilometers and there was this terrible noise, and I had no idea where the noise was coming from. It was coming from the fan. After spending 3 days working on her, I'm not 3 kilometers away when a noise has stopped me in my tracks. Not even 5 minutes. I got fuel and suddenly I heard this very loud cracking sound. And it was very difficult to detect. Horrible noise. Sorry you can't get rid of me, but there's a horrible noise from, because it was more noisy when the engine was revving and less noisy when it wasn't, and it was when it wasn't the engine. We went for a drive. It's the fan. Let me put that into perspective. 3,555 kilometers door to door across Australia. If I was in South Africa, that would be driving from Cape Town to Windhoek onto Harare. I am feeling very confident because I have about half the distance that the Australia crossing demanded of the vehicle, and this is a better vehicle. It's in better mechanical shape than the Range Rover. But to be honest, breaking down scares me. This is not a particularly safe place to travel through. That was the only glitch on that trip. Hopefully this replaced the belt with, the belt was wrong. Replaced the belt on the air conditioner pulley, and hopefully that's the only glitch for this trip.
You know, they said that on Apollo 13, and we all know how that went.
Okay, we're back in the car, slight glitch. Now, those of you who, I'll give you the camera, replaced the belt with, the belt was wrong. Replaced the belt on the air conditioner pulley, and hopefully that's the only glitch for this trip. But now we're back on the road. Right. Well, let's see what happens now.
Here's another traffic light that's out.
I'm looking forward now to getting to our B&B. Time for me, hopefully, to have a closer look at what I've bought. I'm going to start by improving comfort with this. You may be familiar with it. They're called one-stone armrests. Okay. Now, these two have actually been on the Canning stock route because I bought myself another set. These were in my Troopy. These tyres are not great. Not great, that's fine. That back one is not particularly good, but it's not bad. That's brand new. That's okay. I've got to find a place to do some work on the car. I think I'm going to get a general look of this tyre. This tyre's okay. I need to double check all my rims. These are split. See these split rims? Most dangerous thing in the world. Those things. We could have a whole discussion now about split rims. But the fact is that being a split rim, it's far easier to take the tyre off the rim in the bush somewhere because they're split rims. However, you do so at your peril. They're very, very dangerous. I don't want them. I just don't want them on my car. because sometimes you'll go to a tyre place and say, hey, will you do this for them? And they'll say, no, we won't touch them. We won't touch them because they don't have the safety cage in which to do them. But now it should be easy. I'm just going to have them swapped. And I'm going to ask the guys if they wouldn't mind taking out these two back seats. It'd be nice if they could take all four of them out. But these two, even just one of them would be, because we're finding it very difficult packing and accessing stuff in the back of the vehicle. I don't know what these seats were, what they were used for. Not sure. But anyway, I need to get rid of them if I can. Just make a grand entrance. No one. How's your hat? Did your hat survive?
My hat survived beautifully.
Brilliant. You look fantastic as usual. There's a problem. Green.
I know, it doesn't match. I should have got something, a blue hat or that pink one.
Or change your frock.
Yeah, limited clothing, travelling light.
When I lived in South Africa, Tiger Wheel and Tyre, they supported my TV show in a big way. They helped out. They were the equivalent to me now of City Discount Tyres in Australia. They're just helpful. And I'm going to call on them this morning, but I'm going to have to play the famous YouTuber card because I need them to sort the tyres out. And I'm going to ask them if they can remove those back seats. And I'm going to ask them to do it for me now. Let's see what happens. That less difficult, but actually I've looked underneath, not that hard to get out. And this one, there's a fuel tank under here, but I think the fuel tank might be forward of it. Easy, easy, easy. Not that difficult. They're all going to be quite easy to get out. I know you guys can do it.
Yes.
But I don't have tools. I arrived from Dubai last night, and I need these two seats removed. There are 4 bolts that go straight through the floor, and you can access them underneath quite easy.
Okay.
I need 4 bolts, take them out, chuck them out.
All right.
And I need this wheel put on the back here, because this wheel, the other tires look okay, but this is a bit, so for safety,
Okay.
can you just make a swap for me?
All right.
Can you do it now for me?
Just waiting for the guys here.
Okay.
Yeah, we just open it now at 8 or so.
Yeah, at 8.
Yeah, we'll put it on the ramp, then
Okay.
we'll help you out.
Fantastic, mate. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Put us on TikTok?
Hmm?
Are you gonna put us on TikTok?
Of course, on YouTube. Not TikTok so much, lots of Instagram, lots of YouTube.
Yeah, we'll help you out.
Okay, yeah. All right. Good, thanks, mate.
The bodies of 2 people who drowned were found along the banks of the Landcruiser.
In South Africa, 70 series Landcruisers with rear disc brakes are quite rare. Those are new, and that is a disc brake. Why has this thing got disc brakes on the back? Most of them come with drums that don't work very well at all. So I got lucky. So he made the noise of a ratchet gun. It goes pop, pop, pop. We go brrr. Luckily, it wasn't a particularly busy morning for them. So in about 10 minutes, about 4 of them got stuck into the job. That feels really good. It's the first thing that we've done. 1 down, thousands to go.
Happy people. We're happy, the seats are out. They're happy, they've got some seats and some cash because Tiger Wheel and Tyre haven't given us a formal invoice. So we've just one seller, which is a gift for the guys, and we're now headed to Woolworths.
Woolworths in South Africa is like Marks and Spencer's in the UK, a premier food store, and stockists of some of our old favourites, which we will take with us to keep us sustained on our long journey. This is just like one gigantic South Africa section at Coles. All our kit in the car does make me nervous, leaving it parked and not attended. But yeah, what can I do? Parking lots like this, you actually have car guards looking out for thieves and that, so and one normally tips them. And I run out of cash because I gave all my cash to the guys at the Tiger Wheel and Tyre place, so I need to find a place to get some cash so I can tip them. For me, there are two brands in South Africa that stand out. I've been using their products since their companies were formed, and still even now, while operating from Australia, I'm still using their products because I just like them so much. But not just the products, the people as well. So I'm actually, while in Johannesburg, fitting two of them to the vehicle in preparation for our drive down. And the first one is a set of Tackler seat covers. I've had them on every vehicle that I built in Australia, as well as the Landcruiser 105 that we built in South Africa, and now fitting a set to the troop carrier. Hey, they look good, Nan, don't you think?
Very nice. Oxo logo on them.
Yeah. This product is called a Tack Mat, and this one has the audio insulation material in it, and it was actually back in 2011 my brainchild. I went to Tackler with my 2011-12 troop carrier and I said, hey, how about doing your lovely Tack mats, but including with it a sound insulation layer, which they did, and they now sell this as a product. And doesn't that seat look nice? It feels like a cotton canvas, but an act like a cotton canvas. And very important for South Africa, of course, is that each seat cover comes with its own gun pouch. Something I have just noticed, look at that tyre. That was on the vehicle, that was running. That's right down to canvas, that is. So I really, really made a good choice in doing something about that tyre. One more thing that I can do before I leave Johannesburg, and that is collect a small fridge for our trip from Snowmaster. Not unlike Tackler, I was there when Snowmaster was born, and I had the very, very first, it was a 40 litre in a vehicle of mine, and then they put a slightly larger one in my troop carrier. And I know they're over 20 years old, and it's amazing how they've grown into an international brand, and they're not particularly well represented in Australia, which is a pity, because there are other South African brands that I regard as, well, I'm actually talking about a brand that you all know, I won't mention them now. It's a very good fridge, okay, it's South African, it's excellent, but it's not a patch in terms of value on the Snowmasters, and that's why I'm still using them, and I think they're outstanding, I just do. So we're going to get this one here. It's a bit dark in here, but that's the 12 litre. It is the only console fridge that will fit between the seats of a troop carrier, because the seats are closer together than in the 76 and 79. And I'm going to take one now, and tomorrow morning when I've got a little bit of time and I'm out of Johannesburg, I'm going to wire it up, and Gwen and I will use it on our trip. We are now trying to get out of Johannesburg, and because of load shedding, basically the intersections stop working, traffic lights stop working. So Joburg's traffic is bad enough without a load shedding adding to it. So every traffic light becomes a four-way stop.
For those who don't know what load shedding is, because that's that I think is a strictly a South African term, blackouts, brownouts, scheduled power cuts, where the government just turns the power off for a certain number of hours each day. It happens twice a day in South Africa, apparently, certainly in Johannesburg. I don't know about the rest of the country, where for an hour and a half, 2 hours, they'll turn the power off twice a day to conserve electricity.
on the highway, actually was quite quick. And people are really well mannered, which surprises me because Joburg drivers are not well mannered. But somehow I think maybe that they all got so used to it that
they just treat it like a four-way stop.
Treat it like a four-way stop, and it's actually quite effective.
Sherman Freeway for 6 kilometers.
Oh, this woman navigating, interrupting me on camera, driving me crazy. She knows exactly when to talk. Like Heiner and Rob on Mechanic Stock Route. If I turned on a camera, they would talk on the radio, especially Sean.
Oh, well. It adds interest.
We are now leaving the N3, National Road 3, which goes all the way to Durban, thank goodness, because it's trucks. And we're starting now our trip on the back roads through South Africa. So most of our journey now, except the last bit, is off national roads. We want to show you some of the prettiest side of South Africa we can. And within just a few minutes of leaving the national road, the road condition deteriorated alarmingly. Lots of big holes and potholes in the road, which slows up travel. I mean, difficult to even maintain 100. But this, as it turned out, was nothing. We were soon driving at a snail's pace on a major regional road. Gwyn and I are on our first leg of our drive down to Cape Town from Pretoria. We've collected our high mileage Landcruiser and it's needed in Cape Town, so the work on it can begin to prepare it for long distance African overland touring. Our first stop is a small town called Clarence, a town that we used to escape to for weekends with our children. A lot has changed in the 10 years that we've been gone.
So we've arrived at our B&B and there's load shedding. No lights. So I have no idea how long the lights are going to be off. They've provided a light. That's it.
I brought a lantern.
Millions of people around the world live with this every day, so let's not whine.
We have decided to stay here an extra night, so a bit of a chill day, and amongst with chilling, shopping and exploring the village of Clarence, I've got a couple of things to do here to prepare our vehicle for the trip. So I should point out right now, there are a few, I wouldn't say problems. Yeah, it's not actually very nice to drive at all, and I need to sort some things out. My kids played in Clarence. This was their place, and they will be, as I think, shocked, surprised as we are in how things have changed.
Nothing sums up Clarence's commercialization and the change that has taken place here more than this.
And as we wander around the lovely little shops of Clarence, we cannot help but stumble upon the soundtrack that is commercialism.
Yeah, that sort of
elevator music, and lovely little shops with lots of things to spend on for absolutely no reason at all. And the other soundtrack is clearly evident. Generators. Must be load shedding. I didn't see that soundtrack ever happening here in Clarence. To begin with the seats, they have obviously been re-upholstered, but they haven't been re-padded. And after a 3-hour drive yesterday, we were both in pain. They're not good, but there is nothing I can do about that. What I can do something about is the steering wheel. It has been polished, it's shiny as you can see, but it's also a little bit soft, it's squishy, and there's another quality that it has about it which is difficult for me to put in words, other than to say it's a bit I have bought some tools for the work that I need to do now, but also these tools will stay in the vehicle. They are cheap. I wasn't about to spend a lot of money on really expensive tools that I will use so infrequently that these are perfectly adequate. What do they say? Cheap and, well, not that cheerful, but cheap. This is the one that I took out of my V8 Troopy in Australia. And I thought I would bring it because, well, I noticed in the pictures that the steering wheel is a bit, so I can just replace it. However, things are never as simple as you think they're going to be. I need special tools to do it. So I will do that as part of the work when we get to Cape Town. Wins Dash. It's a dash cleaner, and it's got a fresh piney smell. Actually, it's not a particularly nice smell. It smells like one of those car air fresheners. However, it's mighty better than this, and it's really strong. It's really strong in here, the smell. I have fitted armrests. All right. I have another armrest for the middle. Armrests just make a massive difference. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do about the rattling in here. I've got an idea of something that I think that I can improve it a bit, but it's very, very noisy inside the cab. And because it's so noisy inside the cab, it increases fatigue, but we'll work around that. This, though, is a very nice centre armrest, something a bit special. I collected it yesterday while passing through Johannesburg. Really, really good. I like it very much. This is my third one that I've had. But I'm not going to be able to fit this either. I need more tools. So I won't be able to use it as an armrest because I need an angle grinder. There's a bracket. I remember now, cut away the bracket, and then there's an inspection hatch. Take that off, and then you can use the inspection hatch to actually tie down the bracket. Really, really easy. But I need an angle grinder, and I don't have tools. I've just got these very basic tools. So what I do want to do, though, is I'm going to do something with it. So perhaps I can jam a pillow or something between this seat and that seat to hold it down so it doesn't move like this. And then Gwyn will be able to just reach into it. That is actually an easy fix. That's what I'm going to do. Right, so I bought a variation of bits and pieces, not knowing exactly what I would find when I got here. And that's the power box. So basically that is the power box that I have to link to the start battery. And I must just remember when closing up for the night, I unplug everything so I don't drain the start battery. And that's the fuse for the start battery. In terms of the noise inside the cab, roof rack I can do absolutely nothing about. And I don't know if I can do anything about this. Watch this. Apart from put the heavy, really heavy bags right in the middle, that will go some way to solve it, but there are dozens of holes in the floor and they probably go all the way through. So we're going to have to seal those, and so we're getting noise coming straight up from the road. And because we've got two layers of steel on steel, all the vibration is being amplified by this. Because it's loose, it's being amplified. That I didn't expect when I bought the car. So I'm going to need a spanner to attach that to there, and then I run the cable from there, and obviously from the earth. I can wedge that in there like that, something like that, or there, and then run the cable. Now one must remember, this is temporary. It's just got to get us down to Cape Town, and not particularly difficult rough roads, but that's its job. What we've got here, and my conclusion is that a vehicle that actually has been abused. I mean, mechanically we've proven that it's pretty good still, but door latches and that kind of thing, it has been abused. It's had a hard life. These doors are both broken, but not badly broken. Something I better fix. The interior, but you know, everything I'm thinking now, everything that I'm going to do to the vehicle, I'm going to strip out anyway. And those parts that I need to spend a lot of money on to get right, well, I've got the team to help me. So parts of the vehicle I'm disappointed with, but the other side of it is I didn't pay much for it, and it's mechanically good, and it's a fantastic foundation.
We're taking a walk up to our Clarence's little local grocery store just to get something for lunch today.
Because we'll be on the road all day today.
Yeah, and we've been eating so much heavy cooked food since we left Perth. Just feel like some pate and a bread roll with some tomato for lunch, something light. Andrew, come, I found something. This is what we need. I found a shelf of, I've got some holy oil here. I can't read the label, but clearly, given the picture, this is some kind of love potion. But what really caught my eye was the tokoloshi oil. Now, a tokolosh is, in African culture, he's a tiny little man, and he's got black hair, and he's terrifying. So in African culture, you will always see that the beds are put on bricks and a paint can. I don't know if that's still common in maybe the city areas, but out here in Clarence, clearly it is, because there's tokoloshi oil, which I'm assuming if you've got holy oil and tokoloshi oil, it's designed to keep away the tokoloshi. I can't imagine what Andrew's looking for. Sleep, more love potions. Oh, that's interesting. Another tokoloshi. Oh, look, maybe if you're having troubles in the law, that will help you. Something to do with snakes. This looks like an angel coming to take you away. Oh, flies. Maybe we should take some of that to Australia.
Oh, that's what I need. Cenopods. Oh dear, that'll do the trick. Really interesting, that little, those potions. I've not seen that before.
Yeah,
maybe
by the witch doctor, by the Sangoma.
Yeah. You know,
Pity they didn't have a rattly car one.
This troop carrier is the perfect example of how basic this vehicle is. And I will, over the next year or so, show you how good it can become. At the moment, it's suffering from all its challenges. Access is difficult. I can only get in from the back, not from the sides. This particular one has the standard suspension, and it's tired. It has an air conditioning, which I'm grateful for, because it's summer here in South Africa, but it's incredibly noisy inside. The great big cavern inside, like a cave, the sound echoes, plus the rattling that I've mentioned earlier. And of course, nowhere to put anything. There are no door pockets here at all. And so we, from the front, have to try and access stuff in the back. And I've put the fridge in there like that. You can see what I've done with the little Snowmaster. And that seat's broken, as I mentioned, and we will make the best of it. But the adventure, for me, the true adventure, starts now. The trouble is, in the heavy rain, the potholes fill up with water and then vanish. You cannot see them.
Well, how's your spine doing?
My spine is fine. My ears are the problem. There's so much noise. I last did this road, I worked out 8 years ago, and it was fine. This is a main arterial route between two large-ish rural towns, farming communities. I have never seen roads this bad in South Africa, and I've toured this country. There are a few roads that I haven't driven in this country, and I have never seen this before, even remotely like it before. See, that there is the yellow we're on now, so this is really bad for the next, difficult to say scale, there's no scale on here, but all the way down to...
It seems to get better.
There are no... So, according to this map, the bad bit, we've passed the bad bit, and we've got the bad bit in front of us, but only for another, difficult to say how many kilometers that is. Not that long. 20 k's, 30 k's, 40 k's.
It's a 9-hour drive to where we need to be, and we had sort of thought, well, divide the trip into 2 because we didn't feel like doing a 9-hour stretch in this old skadonk. So we were going to overnight tonight, but I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, well, we'll see.
Do the trip in 2 days. It'll take the whole of it. Yeah, we were thinking 5 to 6 hours a day. No, it's not going to be that. It's going to be 9 hours a day to do it in 2 days. Right, we stopped at the side of the road. Shattered, absolutely shattered. We've pulled off the road. In South Africa, I'm never comfortable just pulling at the side of the road. I would like to just get off the road, just for safety. It's not that it's necessarily dangerous, but it's also not necessarily safe, depending on where you are. But anyway, this is a piece of private land, obviously, so we've just come off the road half a kilometre or less, and we're going to make ourselves some lunch in the peace and quiet. Endurance, this. Roads are terrible. Driving out of one of the towns, a place called Ladybrand, I quickly grabbed my cell phone and got a shot over the bonnet. The main intersection, going into the town and going out of the town. We almost needed low range, and in the town. Wow, it's bad. But it was this country that I wanted to drive through. I've come through here a few times, and it strikes me as it's so beautiful, and particularly now in summer, with the layers of cumulus clouds and rain clouds. It really is beautiful, beautiful country. It's a beautiful part of South Africa, and not commonly visited by tourists. There's not much tourist infrastructure here, and that's, I think, why I like it so much.
This road is in better condition. Or maybe it's the rain that's hiding the imperfection.
Well, we are at our overnight stop on our way to Addo Elephant National Park. We found a very nice looking B&B in a town called Burgersdorp. Here's the problem. We are not equipped for camping, which means we are not equipped for preparing a meal. Which means tonight we are going to go hungry because everything in town is closed. There's nothing open, not even a shop to buy food. It's Sunday. And so what are we going to have to do is go through everything we've got inside the car, food-wise, and find out what we've got and try and make something to eat. So what do you think? We've got some milk.
I've got some milk.
We've got breakfast.
I bought breakfast cereal.
We've got breakfast cereal, and you know what else we've got? It's some drovors.
Yeah, we've got drovors. We've got some crisps.
We've got some crisps, and we've got some chocolate.
We'll be fine.
We'll be fine. Nice little B&B except no bee because it's load shedding tomorrow morning, so she won't be able to make us breakfast. And there's nowhere open in the town where we can have something to eat. This would never normally happen to us because we are so well equipped. When we travel, we are ready for any eventuality. That is not the case now.
I'm ashamed to say that this crap is tonight's supper. We've at least got some wheat bix and some milk, but the rest of this is sort of junk, and a tomato. The rest of this is junk for kind of snacking on in the car. But
one bread roll, Omar rusks, those weren't ours, those were from here.
Those were there, I went scavenging. There's a little bit of liver spread left.
Enough for one roll.
Any
cheese left?
No, cheese we ate at lunch.
What about the drovos?
Oh, I forgot the drovos. We've got drovos.
Oh, and I still have half a Coke left, so I'm okay. Best part about today? Clouds, cloud formations. The storm, the rain, even though sometimes it was incredibly intense, the colours and the way the sky was just suddenly just black, and then it burst out, and then with the hills and it was fantastic. It was like a feast for the senses, and very dramatic. In amongst the rumble of the car and the noise of the car, which actually we're getting used to. I'm getting used to it. It's flipping noisy in there. And I just keep thinking to myself, it's, you know, the troop carrier as it comes out of the factory is so, in some ways, crude. But man, is it fun to get right. And you can actually get it really good. The contrast between that and what I will build will be remarkable.
I've got to tell you that I've been enormously impressed with the vehicle. It's as uncomfortable as anything because the seat is broken and it rattles and it's noisy and it's all of these things. But it has gone like a dream. Hey? It's just sailed along, and it's taken those potholes and all the, you know, the terrible roads like a mountain goat, completely in its stride. So for a vehicle that's got 500,000 kilometers on it, I don't think you're going to find a lot of issues when you and Paul get under the hood. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised and bitterly disappointed, because no nonsense under the hood means less content.
Right, now, another day a bit like yesterday actually. You've had a look at the road report.
Yeah.
Which seems to be quite accurate and quite depressing. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of pothole roads today. Probably, yesterday the back end of yesterday actually turned out to be quite good. The last half was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't really terrible. Today, I think it's going to be the last half that's going to be pretty terrible as we head to Addo Elephant National Park.
But hopefully it'll all be worth it, because we'll see elephants and we might see lion, but we'll be in a wildlife area.
I have no idea where I'm going.
Oh, I'm supposed to be navigating. I think I'm supposed to be
going right here.
Yes, you
are.
My
gut says right.
Right, sorry. I'm an interesting navigator.
Talking too much, yes.
All right, you just carry...
Playing video games. Interesting navigator playing video games.
Candy Crush.
Turn left now, quick. Oh, you missed it.
Okay, at the end of the road, you're going to go left. Let me redeem myself.
The truth is, though, that I am really enjoying my new Troopy, and I am forming some kind of bond with it. As noisy and as rough as it is, it's a Troopy, and it's mine.
So what are you excited about today?
I'm actually getting to a national park, and maybe seeing some animals early. Well, this is now a new province. It's called the Eastern Cape, and they're rebuilding this road. This is now quite new. Good news.
It's good news. So maybe it all comes down to the provincial government, whether the provincial government is managing the province properly or not. And it certainly looks like the Free State, which was where that terrible road was, they've got the B team on, clearly, and they need to up their game.
And the evidence soon proved Gwyn right. We stopped at several of these, good for the suspension, less good for the distance covered. An hour and a half later, and we're in the town of Hofmeyr, and as you would expect, we're both very hungry. But this has got me worried. The town looks utterly deserted.
What's going on?
This one got 5 stars on review, but only when it's open. And this one got 5 stars too. Right. Make a left here.
The lights are on, but no one's home. It's like
Towns are empty.
yeah, it's like the apocalypse happened and all the people vanished, and it's weird.
We find fuel stations, but fuel stations in little towns like this are normally tiny. So, no supper last night, no breakfast this morning, and another hour and a half or so we'll try in the next town called Craddock. That was the worst we've seen.
But had such potential, that the farmhouse and that boutique hotel. They look so nice. Beautiful. But honestly, it's as if everybody's been beamed up. There was just no people.
Maybe we're the only ones left. Maybe we're the only ones left.
Maybe.
Maybe.
What's it all for?
Maybe. Yes, what's it all for? And maybe it's now up to us to
Repopulate the earth. That could be a problem.
Thank you. Right. I need a hotel. They're all bloody closed. Am I seeing?
No, do our eyes deceive us?
Do our eyes deceive us? Never have Gwen and I been so excited to find a very ordinary restaurant. It's called Wimpy. That's a really old sign.
What is Wimpy for people who don't know?
Oh, everybody knows what Wimpy is. It's not unlike McDonald's, except the food they serve doesn't make you ill afterwards.
No one lives in hope. I don't know, but I see plates. It's a Wimpy. Wow.
But I want to park in front of the building. Right. Happy now?
I'm not the one that was saying the whole time that they were starving.
She wasn't starving. Right. And I'll have that.
So the news is good. We finally do a burger because it's
Well, we can keep an eye on the car, safely parked there. Hello. The Addo Elephant National Park. No surprise that the first large mammal we see is an elephant. So for the next 2 days I'm going to try my hand at natural history filmmaking.
Are you picking up the sound of him, do you think?
Yeah, I am. Probably am. To the natural filmmaker, what is remarkable about the elephant, and useful too, is that they're very large. So getting a good focus on them is made easier. Not so the kudu antelope. Not unlike the yellow mongoose. Yes, that's what it is, because I looked it up. And vital to the natural history filmmaker is to not accidentally run any of the animals over and not have the clattering diesel engine in the soundtrack. And the ostrich, Africa's least shy creature. The secret of a good nature documentary is to show, not tell. Well, tell a bit, but show, principally show.
That's why you're going to use stock footage.
There is a technique that is picked up quite quickly by visitors to parks like this, and that is to find the game. Not only should you look into the distance, but you should also look for cars, because where there is animals, there will be cars.
And there's an elephant.
And there is an elephant. And lots of cars looking at the elephant.
Oh, just seeing elephants always gives me such a thrill.
Such beautiful texture.
Oh, there. Yes, those ears.
So, come on then, turn around. Turn around. Come on.
So you'll just have to have, content yourself with descriptions. They're big, they're brown,
They know
got
what an
4
elephant
legs,
looks like.
a long nose that hangs down to the ground.
We've arrived at our lodging for the night. As I've mentioned before, we are not equipped for camping on this trip. We've just purchased the vehicle, taken delivery of it, and are now driving it across South Africa.
Home for the next 2 days.
The scenic way. To try and get some shots of animals.
Oh,
I'll give it another go tomorrow morning.
Isn't that nice?
That is rather nice. Now, I can't turn on the lights to show you, but we have our own little game reserve.
Beautiful. Because the whole thing with game viewing, it's the best time to game view is early morning and late afternoon. So spending your whole day in the car driving around in the heat of the day is not really what you do when you come game viewing. So you get up early at first light, you get out, you go for a couple of hours, you come back, you have breakfast, and then you just park off in a magnificent place like this, or at a campsite or wherever you are, and you relax during the day. You sleep when the animals sleep, essentially. Read or do whatever, and then in late afternoon, after 3 o'clock, when it starts getting cooler, that's when you go out again, because then the animals are coming out from under the bushes and are ready to go and look for their supper and do stuff.
These lodges, almost all of them, will have a main camp, central camp, most popular camp. And there we all get the most convenience, but you'll also get the most people. This is at the other end of the camp. No cell coverage, no restaurant, no convenience, and hardly any people. And that's why we're here. The next morning, Addo was bathed in a soft, foggy glow. Perfect light for photography. Now please, animals, listen to me. I need you to face me. Not all the time, just try it, okay? What I love to do most when in the bush is get up first light, make myself a cup of coffee and just sit and listen. I can do that here, but I'm not close to the animals. I feel I'm sealed off from the animals. For ordinary people, very difficult to get the full sensation of living in the bush, because you are protected from the animals, and of course most people actually want to be protected from the animals by either a fence or the steel cage of a car. For me personally, it's being in touch, it's being able to, for example, get intimately close with the dung beetle we saw yesterday, or the little tortoise. We had to observe those little creatures from our cars, and that is why I particularly love going to some of the wild camping experience in other countries where, yes, you are protected, but you're not protected to the same degree. and as a result your interaction, relationship with the bush is far more intimate. So I will this morning again try my luck at animal cinematography, and when I say luck, I mean luck.
Can I tell you a few of the problems with Andrew, even considering being a wildlife photographer? Sorry, only half my hair has been brushed this morning, but I couldn't resist this opportunity.
And never mind.
For you to have the patience,
Yes.
to sit day after day to get one shot. Andrew can't sit for 20 minutes.
But I got the shot.
That's why it's random.
I'm not denying it's random, but I got the shot.
You got the shot. But you would never be able to
But I
sit
don't
on
know
an
what
ice floe for 2 weeks to get a shot of a seal. No. And that is what makes
Wildlife
photographer. They're prepared to wait for weeks
and suffer great hardship
for the shot.
to get that shot, and we're in a comfortable lodge.
Yeah.
Although that isn't a polar bear or leopard seal.
Or lion. Though you've got some good lion shots,
No.
but they were also random.
No, I've never actually got an absolutely beautiful shot. One on the banks of the... We'll cut to it now. Once
that's
on the
what I
banks
was
of the
thinking.
Troopy River. That's it. Nothing
So you're
else.
much better at elephants because they're big and they're everywhere.
They're big and they're easy to get focus on because they've got crinkly bits, so the camera says, oh, I'll focus on you. That's easy.
Well, I'm going back to brushing my hair.
Not making any difference. The Addo Elephant National Park is a diverse wildlife conservation park situated in South Africa and is one of the country's 20 national parks. It currently ranks third in size after the Kruger National Park and the Kalikadi Transfrontier Park. The original section of the park was founded in 1931, in part due to the efforts of Sydney Scafe in order to provide a sanctuary for the 11 remaining elephants in the area. The park has proved to be very successful and currently houses more than 600 elephants and a large number of other mammals. Oh, that was lucky. I could be a wildlife photographer after all. And we haven't arrived in Cape Town yet. We've still got about 8 hours to go, but we have finished its first trip. And so it has earned its badges of honor. What I mean by that is stickers. Now the first one is familiar to a lot of you. And this, of course, is the channel sticker. Forex Overland started in 1996. And this is the 10th Landcruiser that has been part of the channel. The second sticker is this one here. Some of you will be familiar with it. It is the sticker. It represents the Off-Road History Museum in Sharjah province in the United Arab Emirates. The reason why this sticker is going on this car is that the museum and its founder was a huge help to the channel and to me personally during COVID-19. The last one is this one here. It's the last sticker of its kind. You'll notice it has a little badge underneath it called Cross Country. Cross Country was an insurance company that used to insure all of my four-wheel drive vehicles when I was in South Africa, and is insuring this one. That company still exists to this day. On top of the sticker, you'll see Infomap. Infomap was my mapping company that I started in 1999 and sold in 2008. And this is the last sticker, as I said. When I sold Infomap, I kept about 5 of these because something said to me, you're going to need those. I don't know what it was, but this is now going badge of honor on the back of our lovely new Landcruiser. Can I get that straight? And all I have to say is, guys, if you visit South Africa, this is Southern Africa's best beer by far. It's called the Windhoek Lager or Windhoek Draft. This is a draft, which is even better than the lager. So, if you're visiting this part of the world, ask for Windhoek.
I promise you, he's not sponsored by anyone. That's why we're buying supper and paying for the beer ourselves.
We have finally arrived. Many of you who have watched the series in 2019 where we built a 105 Landcruiser will recognize this place. This is Snymans 4x4, and there is Paul standing waiting.
This bit now is the bit that I've been looking forward to so much for the last 2 years. Actually a little bit more since we sold the 105 that we built here in 2019. Paul's reaction when I show him what I got.
Welcome. Hey, good to see you. Long time, eh?
This part of the Western Cape was my home for close to 20 years. It's been 10 years since I left.
I have come out this morning to one of my favorite places in Cape Town. It's called Kalk Bay, where people come and swim in the frigid waters. And I just like to come out here and look at the boats, look at the mountains. It's a really, really lovely little quaint fishing village about 40 minutes from the city of Cape Town. Personally, I have an intense allergic reaction to cold water. I scream uncontrollably.
Gun and I have successfully driven the Landcruiser all the way from Pretoria, now down to Cape Town, without any major, actually, or even minor mechanical challenges, which bodes very well for this machine. But now, the real fun, well, for me, begins. With the help of Paul Marsh and Hubert Snyman, I'm going to turn this into the perfect African long-range tour.
Well, I have survived. There in the far distance is Table Mountain. We're approaching it from the east, and that's why it doesn't look its familiar shape. And I have about 20 or so kilometers, 25 to go to my destination. So, I survived.
I use the word survive because I've just survived the notorious N2. In fact, during the entire 500 kilometers to Cape Town, I feared for my life. It was one of the most unpleasant driving experiences I can remember. So that first view of Table Mountain was a huge relief to me. I'm in the early morning rush hour, just outside Cape Town, and it's about to begin. The build is about to begin. Very excited about it. What will the guys reveal as we start taking this vehicle to pieces? Some of you will remember last time when I delivered the 105. These guys, man, I was gullible.
Nice to meet you. I know this car.
You know this car?
Yes, a couple of years back it came on a trailer. The whole roof was flat.
Not this time. No, not this time. This time I'm going to be strong and wise. 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
Yeah.
We had to catch you. We had to. It was too priceless to actually.
You mean you're b***ing me?
We are absolutely taking that.
What has happened between then and now? All good.
How you doing?
Man, good to see you, man.
Very good to see you. Very, very good to see you. No shit this time, okay?
I knew you've seen this car.
No.
We changed the chassis on this. Yeah, remember. We stamped the chassis number.
You know something? It's not going to work again.
I can truly say I don't know this car.
You might still be lying.
No, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I can tell you a bit about it. Service records up to about 400,000 seem fairly complete.
You want to give it your step?
There you go, pointed at us. Right, well done, perfect timing. Service records up to about 400,000 seem to be fairly complete. Then from about 400 to now, 490 something, very incomplete. Mechanically, it actually feels fantastic. I've got a little misfire or something at high RPM from about 2,200, 2,700, somewhere around there. Occasionally you just feel this very, very slight, but it's there.
Not all the time, though.
Not all the time, only on acceleration. And but the suspension feels good, the gearbox, the clutch is good, the brakes, it's got disc brakes at the back.
Nice.
Okay, the brakes are good, it stops straight, it drives straight, it starts for, they did do some work on the starter, but the starter's good. The body is tatty. All the doors are a little bit broken.
Worked hard.
It's worked hard. And the interior is a mess. But nothing we can.
But that can be cleaned up.
Yes.
I mean, the body looks, we see, reasonably
been,
straight.
I think it's been resprayed.
Yeah, you can see it. Yeah.
And I've seen some overspray in a few places.
Yeah.
It's got chips bodywork. The only major dent is this one here. It's the only major dent worth fixing.
Gosh, that's great. Good, man. That's nice to see. You had a good drive, though.
Good drive. The last bit from Knysna was terrifying because of the traffic and the speed and the aggression of the road. We're not used to it anymore.
No, very different.
I'm just not used to it anymore.
Yeah.
And that roof rack is it's noisy. Oh, it's noisy.
Oh, yeah.
80
coming off.
At 80 it goes and it's this low frequency that is deafening. So you actually have to stop talking at between 80 and 90. And then you can start talking, and then it whistles. But at least you can talk over the whistle. You can't talk over this drumming vibration.
Anyway, that can come with.
But apart from that, actually, I'm quite pleased with it. I'm interested to see what a 500,000 kilometre Landcruiser looks like.
I will show you.
Yeah, piece by piece. And then from there decide what we put back. What life is. So, yeah, good.
We carried on chatting about all kinds of things for the next 20 minutes, but the next video, we're going to inspect it. Well, I'm going to let them inspect it, if you don't mind. And hopefully we don't find any nasty surprises. I have to ask one thing, though, before we start, if you don't mind. And that might be a bit of a stretch, but could I have coffee?
I don't know, Steph, what do you think?
All right, carry on, come. Hey, where is, don't go away. I'm here, thank you.
Yeah, you bloody trick. You know, he always does this. Try.
Hang on.
No.
It's a moment of truth time. We're at Snymans 4x4, just outside Cape Town. This is both the most exciting part of the entire project, showing Paul and Hubert the Landcruiser, but what happens in the next 20 minutes will determine if this 500,000 kilometre Landcruiser is financially viable.
I mean, largely the wheel is responsible for all that wear.
Yes, sure.
But that's fixed.
It's going to come off, and we're going to do a bumper. So
Before they put it on the ramp to take a real close look, Paul and Hubert are taking it for a test run. And I've handed the camera to Paul to record their thoughts without me being around.
I guess that's the happens. He starts it up and the thing screams because the damn air conditioning belt is the wrong one. It survived our trip down, but every time I had to turn it on, I had to get the revs right down and then turn it on and then gradually turn it up so it wouldn't do that.
The clutch is nice and squeaky.
It's always an interesting time to go and test drive a vehicle and see what we pick up.
It's going to be very interesting to hear what they have to say about it.
Okay, so the important part of doing a test drive is to really try and pick up things that maybe some of the people who drive don't normally notice. And in your experience, what have you found that people don't always pay attention to?
You see, when I drive, I go for the obvious stuff first. Road noises, steering wheel that is skewed, gearbox lever that's loose or reckless, and yeah, warning lights that's on the dash, stuff that's missing. But usually when I drive it, I try to listen to noises and where does it come from and when does it show itself.
Yeah.
And in that way you can start eliminating certain things. You can hear a whining noise and you say, oh, it's the diff. But then you start driving more and then suddenly you realize it's a transfer box.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember, like Andrew's 105, where the clicking noise in reverse. Usually when you do a road test like this, you never put it in reverse.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's also important, but I'll show you usually also the way I test clients' clutches.
Because that's something I think people don't always understand, how worn is a clutch. And we've replaced two quite recently on quite low mileage cars. You know, we're talking one was 30,000 kilometers and one was probably a bit more than that, but relatively low mileage for the clutch. And you know, I think also it's important that when you're looking after a vehicle, you understand how to drive the car, looking after the clutch.
You haven't felt it now, but it's a little jerk on the fuel. So we must definitely look at that. Why?
Yeah, noise.
And also, you can actually hear the exhaust. It's got a very high-pitched noise, so that can be a baffle that was loose.
Yeah.
So we'll see when it's on the lift. But overall, so far, it's not too bad for the kilometers.
I think that's the reality. You know, when you're looking at a vehicle, you've got to take into account what are the kilometers on this truck relative to what we feel. Actually, still pulls quite nicely.
Yeah. There's definitely a jerk when you accelerate.
Yeah. So I think also taking time to do a test drive, it does take time, and not everyone makes the time to do a proper test drive. They jump in the car, whiz around the block, and then hopefully they've found a problem or not. You know, it's like a doctor spending 10 minutes with you, can't pick it all up.
So we've got a very nice hill here in Brackenfell. Test my handbrake, it works. clutch. See how it actually pulls away with low revs. It's nice and smooth.
Yeah.
But you see, what I always do with the clutches, I test it in reverse.
Yeah.
But you do get clutches that shows no problems. As soon as you test it in reverse, it starts jumping.
Yeah.
The squealing on the foot starts telling me it's the bushing that is dry.
On the actual pedal. Yeah. Yeah.
That's need to either replace the bush or just lubricate.
And I think some of that is little wear and tear detail, which not everyone does, but I think if you do that, you know, you pick up a little squeak here. I mean, noises, rattles and squeaks drive anyone insane. Right? So now you're going to do your reverse test of the clutch.
Once again.
It's good. Yeah. That's very good.
The tail speed may have been changed.
Yeah.
Once or twice in its life.
But still, you know, if you're trying to make a decision on what you absolutely need to do, and you're trying to work within a budget of your mechanical work, then, you know, depending on how high it's taking off the floor, you've still got some life in the clutch. So you're finding the brakes good, it's pulling up nice and square.
It's nice and high.
And with the tyres we've got on, I mean, the tyres aren't the best, nor the split trims, because you can't balance that well. So, yeah. I wonder if it's sucking air.
I think so. Let's just go through the vacuum system.
Yeah, check the vacuum system, check the fuel system, check it's not pulling any air. You just feel that slight hesitation. So I think overall, I mean, good truck is value for money. It was, you know, it's always difficult to buy a truck when you're buying second hand, and often the mileage can put one off. But in this case, we looked at two trucks, and one with lower mileage actually didn't come anywhere close to this truck. And also the speedo, which not everyone picks up, wasn't working on the other truck. So although it had a lower mileage, it probably hasn't been working for a long time. So it's little things like that to try and establish the picture. What does the history look like? Is it accurate? Do the miles really reflect the condition of the vehicle? And in this case, we know it's an ex-mine vehicle. It's been used for carting people around. So it's never really been looked after by anyone who's cared for it. It's just performed a function. And
just make it drive.
Yeah, just make it drive and get it keep it going, which says a lot for, you know, the fact that the truck's still in good driving condition.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the part. You know, we've driven it, we've got some story of what's happening. Now what we're going to do is go through, put it on the ramp, start stripping parts to actually give us the rest of the story of what we find. Look at the axles, look at the wheel bearings, you know, pull the diffs out, check those, and from there we can get a proper picture of what we really need to do to this truck.
Okay, phone light is working.
So that's working.
Then we turn the buttons. Both connected.
They've both gone solid, which is great.
Is working.
Well, that's great news, because basically the diff locks, the actuators are normally the sticky parts. They're little motors that often get rusted up and don't work. And we forever service them when we pull them apart, but it's nice to know they're working. High range, low range working, the lights all come on and off. So that's a big improvement, especially on what we found on the 105.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we're not find all the faults we found on the 105.
I think when we get back, we might just have to tell Andrew.
Yeah, that grinding noise. That jerking you're feeling
Yeah.
There's a piston lock. There's a compression problem.
Listen, he's out to get us back, definitely. So.
I'm sure he will.
He will. He will. No, I think the reality is he's driven at 1,800 kilometers. He's a pretty good judge of a vehicle. Do I eat it though? Because this is the best part about the car. We found some drove horses. There was a noise in the back.
You kidding?
No, serious.
Horrible.
That was noisy. That was noisy. This was noisy as well. But after we sorted those noises out, we could actually hear the car driving quite well.
Yes.
And she drives well. She drives really well. I mean, honestly.
No, I can't complain about this car. The steering is a bit skew, but like you said, you put another steering wheel on.
Yeah.
And then wheel balancing is out.
Yes.
But that's,
Not badly, but it's out.
Yeah,
I can feel that.
You know, with split rims and those tyres,
Yeah, it's almost impossible.
Impossible to balance. That noise we heard on the exhaust, there was a noise.
Yeah, it's a bit of a high pitch noise.
Yeah, could be a baffle. So what do you think, man?
No, first thing we did test in town, and it's a nice hill. You'll see on the video where I parked it, handbrake works, and then pulled away, clutch is
Good.
wonderful.
Yeah, very good.
Went downhill, stopped it, once again handbrake, test the clutch, smooth, low.
Because it often changes in reverse. You know, in one way going up.
It's
when
good,
you
and
reverse
then
it like
reverse
you
it
had on
shuttles.
one of yours, you
Yes.
get a shuttle.
Yes.
Found a squeal on the clutch pedal. That's just a boost and lubrication.
Okay.
But that's normal. And then we took it on the open road. Like Paul said, everything's smooth, wheel balancing a bit. We pushed it up to 140, it was fine. When I got to 150, I could hear a little bit of a rumbling noise coming from the engine. So that's a bit of a concern.
What about diesel motor?
Yeah, and the jerk, because I tried to push through the jerk. But yeah, it can be a compression issue.
I think we'll do a compression test just to see, but feels like you've got one cylinder very low on compression there.
I think that's
definitely
it's pushing
sucking.
away when it's under pressure.
So I think it might be a head or a piston.
I think so.
I think if we could get it to 160, we'd do well.
I don't actually know whether to take it seriously. I'm surprised that you've got 250 to start.
Exactly. So, no.
It must have been a really long steep.
Yeah, a long steep way. No.
No, we basically.
Are you pulling my leg again? You shit faces.
So we don't have to rebuild the engine. There's nothing wrong with it.
You planned it.
Well, we kind of just thought, you know, what do we do?
You didn't need to plan it, did you?
Now the jerk, I think one is a vacuum issue.
You felt it.
Yeah. It's definitely low and high. I think that's a vacuum. Also, I said to him, we must just check if the EGR has been disconnected.
But now, what really matters? For them to decide what needs to be replaced, overhauled, or just cleaned up a bit, they're going to now take a very close look at the engine, gearbox, drivetrain, brakes, electrics, etc. And then plan the week's work ahead.
So Andrew, from first call, I mean, it looks really good underneath here. I mean, I'll tell you why. I'm looking, there's obviously no corrosion and rust that you can see, which is very nice. I mean, that's so pleasing. But when you look on the actual end of the axles here, the sphere, that you can see.
I know, there's hardly any pitting.
There is no pitting on it. It's brilliant.
It's amazing.
Really in good
Absolutely
condition.
amazing.
I mean, they've changed, a couple of parts. The bushes are in reasonably good condition. But Hubert and I found this leak here. Eh?
Yes, there's a front gearbox also. So is there a lot of play in that?
Transfer box has got a lot of play on it.
A lot of play in it, okay.
So you can see, there's a lot of play there. That's going to need to be repaired. You've got a leak, oil leak as well, but not uncommon. What have you found back here, you bet?
Shackle bushings, stabilizer bar, it's all worn out.
Yeah, the bushes here are completely broken.
That's common.
There as well.
It's flip pipe rubbing.
You can see the oil splatter marks, and often on the back of the car, when you've got an oil leak like this, you'll get little droplets of oil on the back door, and that's a good indication that there's an oil leak from underneath the car. So I wouldn't have not expected to change bushes throughout the whole car. So this is fine, this is what you expect, and we're going to be changing the suspension anyway. Yeah, they're tired. That's okay. But the chassis is in great condition. I mean, you can look, there's no surface rust, even though the metals, the paint's rubbed off here. I mean, that's
almost like it drove just tires.
Yeah. Although, yeah. Or maybe some dirt.
I like the bolts through the floor.
Yeah. This hasn't even had a chassis clean. I promise you, when this has had a chassis clean and every bit of dirt's come off, you'll look like a car that you'd never say it's done the mileage. Never. And this is what you look for when you're looking at a car. You want to actually make sure that the actual chassis, the drivetrain components, you can change bushes, they're a wearable item. You can change shocks, they wear. Even the discs on this car are in really good condition. So they've spent money on the vehicle, which is great. And as you said, you've seen some of the service history. But what we haven't seen, we pick up here to say actually, with the exception of this prop shaft coming from the front axle to the transfer box, the rest is in what we see good condition. Once we pull the bearings apart and take the diff out, we'll have a very clear indication of more wear and tear, if it is that worn. And that's the good part. It's definitely been off-road.
Also at the front, you can see it did bump through in the suspension.
It's actually bottomed out. Yeah, the suspension's tired.
Yeah.
And it's also, the bushes are all gone. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit tall up here. Right. What we look at is the front here to see, is there any damage, or does it look like this has been painted? It's been painted, but I think it looks pretty original. Are you there?
Can you find a replacement cowling?
Yeah. I'm amazed for mine vehicle how clean it is.
I think they cleaned it up well.
But you see, this is all like.
But this was a transport vehicle. I don't think it was. I think it was more transport vehicle for people because of all the seats inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Normally it's.
So that's normally corroded, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
really
it's
bad.
almost like the whole engine looks like this bolt, orange, and you can't get that dust off.
No, it's good.
This is really.
What's nice is you're not seeing anything that has been added to this. I mean, it's all pretty standard and in nice condition. Often here you see these covers that break. Bits are broken off the cover here, but it's everything seems in place, and even the fuel filter hoses, she's in great condition. Now you see, if you had something like this that had come overland, and someone's gone and fitted an extra battery there, which is my pet hate, because unless it's a weekend vehicle, what ends up happening is it cracks the inner wing.
Yes.
And you've got this heavy battery.
Yeah.
So, that's nice to see. This is in pristine condition. If we put it next to the one outside, which is almost brand new, you'd probably find not much difference. It's in really good nick. You can look at the coloration of like the clutch fluid. People are lazy for cleaning that out.
That's
it's
very dark.
And the brake fluid as well. So that never gets changed often enough.
Yes.
And I think every year you should clean out.
We'll just flush that.
We'll clean it out, flush it, brakes, clutch, antifreeze. I know Terrain Team have got the new radiator which we're going to fit.
Yes, I like the idea of that.
Very nice.
Yes.
And it's got a sensor, low water sensor, which is great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they have an upgraded alternator too.
They've got an upgraded alternator which we fit. We've got the upgraded brake booster.
Okay.
So there's a lot of very nice parts which we've been fitting over the last few years.
Normally
from
you would
Toronto.
replace the brakes altogether, but these this has
upgrade.
been this
Look,
has
for the
already got
moment-
discs at the back. What would you say?
Well, we normally would, depending on the weight of the car. You know, if the car is going to be a heavy build,
Yeah,
we upgrade the brakes because it's a no-brainer.
yeah.
If you're not going to put a lot of weight in the car and you're not going to put a lot in it, no, then leave it standard.
Well, it'll be fairly heavy car. I
It will
think.
be. No, we will. You know, just from a point of view that anything related to safety and brakes, braided brake hoses, upgrade the brake disc. It's not a lot of money to give you the best possible braking, and in the grand scheme of things, that's safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great, and we'll be fitting an extra fuel filter as well,
Yes.
which is important going
Yes.
north.
Yes.
But from what we see, it's good. Aircon works. Yes.
Not that well, but I think it might be the pollen filter could be, maybe it's never been changed. I don't know, I haven't had a look, so it doesn't actually
possible.
vent particularly well, but it could be
People forget there's a pollen filter in this car.
Yeah. But to pull that and swap that out, and also to clean and check between the radiator, or we take this out, we'll check the aircon condenser is good. Yeah.
It doesn't work like new, that is for sure.
Yeah, and also batteries. I mean, this is not a great clamp on the battery. And
It's
I
a
see
new
that
battery,
so
but the
often.
battery- yes,
Yeah, I
it is a new
mean,
battery.
you know, you need the battery properly held down and stabilized, which that's not great, and also that's not covered.
Yeah.
So that should cover little things. But listen, in the grand scheme, I think we've got a good truck. Yeah.
Excited.
So we're going to take the engine out and put a different one in.
Yeah, one HDT.
One HDT. Don't
Do you
laugh.
mind?
We've got one.
Do that?
We've got one.
Let's go big. Lexus VM.
Don't tempt. No, man.
Actually, the one HDT is, it's nice.
That in this is
Yeah, it
fantastic.
is lovely. We've done that, and we've turned them back to permanent four-wheel drive. Upgrade the gearbox as well. Yeah, we've done it all.
We might need to talk about that. Maybe not now, but maybe later.
Nice.
Yeah?
You can get that. It's the best way. It's getting the engine, but a good engine like that. I mean, you might find more in Australia than here. They're hard to find here.
They're hard to find in Australia too.
Are they? So running the car, the startup is always important to listen how quickly these start on the touch of the key. And once we've got the engine running, we'll just take the oil cap off, check if there's any pressure in the system, any blow-by from excessive wear on the piston rings and that. So yeah, Marinus, will you start it up? So you can see very little. That's brilliant. Turn off.
Crankcase blow-by.
Yep.
None.
And you know, she's great. I think what we're seeing here is, and part of the history is, you've lucked out really well with this, because this looks like it's almost a really good engine. You know, the condition of the engine's great. The piping, you know, even the pipes we look at, the auxiliary pipes, the heated pipes, they're all in really good condition. So when you're looking at an engine like this of this sort of age, you know, normally you'd find the pipes are all hard and corroded. Vacuum pipes, if you pull them off and you check them, they're often cracked.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
that's still good.
Yeah.
So you know, those little things are telling us a story. And what we're finding is the condition overall is really good. She starts on the key. There's no blow-by. It's great. So yeah,
Fantastic. That's
good.
fantastic.
No, it's really good. And I think this is the important part when you look at an old car. You know, if I know a car's come from the coast, I won't even look at it, because the rust that you pick up is, you're never going to get rid of it. But a car like this, which came from the north, Johannesburg, Pretoria, somewhere around there, it's never been subjected to harsh environmental conditions. So surface rust will not appear on here, which is really a big thing. Then there's no real accident damage. You're seeing signs of money being spent on the car. So yeah, good. I look forward to us stripping it down, and we're going to now pull off the wheels.
I'm
pull down the
fascinated
bearings.
to see what 500,000 kilometers represents in terms of wear and tear on the moving components.
Well, I think that can vary from vehicle to vehicle, depending on what you get. So when you look at a vehicle, you're trying to get a full picture. Did they look after it? Was it serviced regularly? What money's been spent on it? And you won't always get that full picture.
No.
Now with the inspection, we've got some of that story. Now we'll take it and pull apart the bearings, pull out the diffs, look at the pop shafts. That's going to give us the rest of the story. From there, we'll make decisions. What do we actually want to spend money on, and what are we going to change, and do we have to change it?
I think it's very important.
That's key.
Do we want to change it? Do we have to change it?
And if we're changing it, are we changing it for the right reason?
Right.
And I think that's part of what we'll talk about, you and I, is what are the reasons you should consider.
Okay.
When you've got someone you're relying on giving you advice, you want to make sure that they understand what your needs are, what you're going to use the vehicle for, how you're going to use it, so that the advice is in line with what you're going to spend.
Yes.
Because otherwise it can be an open check.
Understand the mission first.
Yeah, understand the mission, I like that, that's great.
Okay, you're impressed. But how do we know? How far do we take it to so we know that it's good for another 500,000? What do we do?
Well, first off, we're trying to get the whole picture.
Yeah.
So part of the picture was the inspection before you bought it, which was a drive, a test, checking some basics. There's a limit to how much you can test, and we had someone else do the test for us.
Yeah.
Also an experienced Toyota technician.
Yeah.
And we came back with positive response from that. So we checked the four-wheel drive, the diff locks. We've rechecked it because Hubert did the full road test. So that gave us a nice clear picture. The car sounds good, it drives good. We've now looked on the ramp and we're seeing they've spent money. The brake discs look in really good condition. The actual axle spheres on the end are nice and clean. The worst of this is a bit of wear and tear on the transfer box and all the bushes. Okay? The chassis is in great condition. And when you look at the front and the back, it doesn't look like there's been any big accidents because all the brackets are straight, all the bolts are correct. You can see when a car's had an accident.
Everything's there that should be there.
So that's what you
removed and not fitted back.
Okay.
So that's like finding that little what Bond finds. No one has bothered with the car.
Yeah.
So they haven't gone and bolted stuff. It's almost better than buying one that's been fully prepped for a trip.
I agree with that.
Done a whole massive trip through Africa. You come back and now you've got all the wear and tear.
Yeah.
You've got wear and tear from daily use, and it's shown that everything's still in place, as Hubert says. Put all new bushes in, put a suspension in, sort out the transfer box, and yes, the precautions we take are strip down the wheel bearings, sort those out, pull out the diffs to inspect them. Take the gearbox out and strip it and check.
Is it worth? So now here's a. The gearbox feels perfect. It doesn't make a noise. Okay, you've got a front oil seal is leaking and there's play there. But would you say at this mileage, take the big gearbox apart because you should do it knowing it's got 500,000 in it, or what?
If this was a normal person using it daily here, I won't change the clutch. I will remove the front coupling, change the bearing and the seal.
Right.
For someone living here.
Yes.
If you're going Africa, because these gearboxes do have a problem on the main shaft input on transfer, take it out, check it.
Right. Okay.
Because that can strip, and then you're done.
You're trying to build confidence. So it's like anything. When you know there's a weak point on a car, every vehicle has a weak point. Okay, so we know, as Hubert said, on the gearbox there's some weak points. When you've pulled it apart and put just new seals and gaskets and looked at it, you've actually identified, can we let this go or can't we? And your gearbox guy will go, you know what, the wear's not bad, I think it's fine, it's going to be good. In my experience, my 30 or 40 years, our gearbox guy, and he goes, I think this is okay. We'll just put seals and gaskets. But what we've done for you as the owner, we've given you that confidence, peace of mind to say, it's not going to on its last teeth where it's just about to strip.
Okay.
Because that creates a big problem. Okay. And that's what you don't want, to have to repair a gearbox with someone you don't know, don't trust. It could cost a lot. You can't get parts and now your trip's a problem. So that's where you've got to look, as Hubert says. Is it a weekender where you trip and back? That's fine. You can extend the life of parts. You probably wouldn't do half of what we might do on this. If you said, I'm just going to use it for weekends, but you're going to do big trips. So we want to build back in that reliability with balance.
With that, yes.
But yeah, she's a good truck. I think we've done well. Yeah, very nice. Great to build out.
That's better than the 105.
Look, the 105
that wasn't
was
that difficult, actually.
The 105 was good until we opened up the gearbox.
That was a disaster. Those of you who haven't seen the 105 series, you need to see that. We did that in 2019, just before COVID struck, and the gearbox was a disaster. Somebody had decided that it would be better if it never had four-wheel drive at all, and converted it into a two-wheel drive by welding one of the spider gears. I still have that as a prized possession on my desk, that welded gear.
Yeah, so yes, good. I think it's an exciting project. I think we've got lots we can showcase here and talk about the values.
I'm now prepared and happy to spend a lot of time and effort and money on getting it right, because the foundation is obviously good. So I'm really excited about what we can turn this into.
So now we have to dismantle it. We can see what 500,000 kilometers looks like, and then share with you the process of deciding what we're going to repair, what we're going to replace in our project to turn this Landcruiser into a long-distance Africa tourer.
You need to get all of us.
Yeah.
As disassembly progresses at some speed, Sean has spent a good morning listing everything that he can find that needs to be sorted, fixed, repaired or replaced. But we're going to start the list with Paul showing us the wear and tear on the hub axles and wheel bearings.
This is where you really do uncover some of the wear items, and quite common on these vehicles. When you take off the bearings, there's a shoulder here. Now the inside part of the bearing ends up rubbing against the shoulder because it actually doesn't grip anymore on the stub axle. And then you'll find here also, as the dust and dirt gets in, it creates a groove. So the seal, your seal actually, the dust comes in from the back and then eventually acts like grinding paste and cuts a groove in here, and there's quite a significant groove where the seal lift runs. So difficult then to obviously keep it nice and sealed and keep the dirt from coming in and contaminating the grease. The fact that when you take the bearings, so when we take the bearings off here and we look at the bearings, they've lost their sheen. So the bearings have actually now gone dull. And that's basically the case hardening, lack of lubrication, heat buildup, which has caused this to be a bearing which we would definitely change. But now when I put the bearing on, and you'll see there's actually, the inner race is loose. And that inner part there, that's the part that actually turns on the stub axle, and it shouldn't. So you can get away with putting something like a bearing lock on there and pushing the bearing on. It's like a glue which will actually hold it in place. But long term, when you're looking at this, you've got to make a decision: is will the seal actually seal? And that's what we have to clean up. We have to clean that surface up there and see whether the seal will actually be good enough to run on that surface there. And then also, if we're going to put the bearings, we don't want to find much play here. And if I take the other bearing, the outer bearing, and we look at the outer bearing, so the grease is a bit more contaminated, and you can see it on there as well. Again, heat breakdown, and same thing here. The bearings have actually discolored. So a bearing will go, it'll lose its sheen, it'll start going brown and eventually blue from heat. And if you're taking your bearing and you want to feel it, you can actually feel is it smooth this is still smooth, but because the rollers have started to tarnish, this is time to change the bearings. And really it's about maintenance. If you maintain your bearings, and again, this, you need to make sure that this is okay. It's not too bad. It's actually a bit loose on the shaft there. Okay, so the decision we've really got to make here is, do we change the whole rear casing? And this is the problem with the Toyotas, is that the stub axle doesn't bolt off. So you've got to make a call. This is an expensive component to change. Now, you know, fitting the bearings, a new set of bearings on here, fitting the seals, the terrain tamer seal works slightly differently. A traditional seal will turn on this stub axle, and the terrain tamer seal, it's a seal within a seal. So there's less likelihood of the dirt coming in. A new set of bearings, maybe a bit of bearing lock on the surface, just to make sure that the inner race of the bearing doesn't turn. And yes, sometimes you can get away with using it. And again, you're going to monitor it and check it and make sure, what is the wear like? And you know, traditionally every 20,000 kilometers you should be pulling your bearings apart, re-greasing them, checking the components, checking the stub axle, checking for wear, and make a call. If you had the budget, you just put a new axle casing in and go, you know what, the car's done 500,000 kilometers, I'm going to replace this axle casing for whatever it costs, it's worth doing. And that's the call we are looking at making when we're trying to make decisions on this truck. Can this go? We'll check the other side, see how bad that is, and then decide, could we use this, depending on where you're going to travel, the length of trips, and we'll take it from there and make a call. So yeah, this is the guts of what we're finding now, is what you can't see from a visual inspection. Okay, so I'm looking at other components. The brake shoes on the other side actually were not in bad condition. They are worn. We will change them. In fact, there's an upgrade kit that Terrain Tamer does to make the handbrake a little bit more efficient. So that's an easy replace. The brake pads were brand new, and so were the discs. If I put the disc here, these are brand new discs. You can see, because they're still nice and silver and shiny, and there's no ridge inside here for the handbrake, but they've got a slight brown tinge to them, and that brown tinge basically shows that there's been some heat go through these brakes. So even with a vehicle like this that's empty and the brakes have been used on a mountain pass or something, again, if the vehicle didn't engage enough engine braking, or the mountain pass was too long, you can still damage discs and put too much heat through them. So discs will go brown and eventually blue, and then it can distort, and especially if you hit any water, you can warp a disc. So it's important that, you know, these discs could be machined. I'm a believer, if you're going to add weight to a vehicle and it's going to be an overland vehicle, where possible, spend your money on the safety. And the safety items for us would be to upgrade the brakes. So you can get better quality brake discs and pads, you can get better quality brake hoses which are braided. It's not too expensive in the bigger picture. Your truck needs to stop. And if you can improve that, you know, that might just be the saving grace for you on one situation. So worth its money. So here we're looking at the stub axle on the other side. And again, we've still got that groove. It's a significant groove, but again, we'll need to measure it up and check it. The bearing pushed on. Also, a little bit more play than the other side, but it's, yeah, you know, it would be more ideal to change this axle based on the mileage. And again, it's a question of how we're going to use this vehicle. This one has got significantly more play. Yeah, so in the ideal world, I would really like to change this axle casing based on two reasons. One is that it's a truck that's done 500,000 kilometers, and if we were building this for someone to go right up into Africa for, you know, a year or more, 6 months, long travel, weighted with a lot of water, fuel tanks being full, possibly going through thick sand, mud, water, then you really want your bearings to be in top condition. It's another critical component that takes a lot of wear and tear. Now you must think how the bearings work really hard, the suspension works hard, the brakes work hard. That's where we want to spend our money before we start doing the niceties on the truck. Right, so coming to the front axle, this is where a lot more wear and tear takes place, especially on these front swivel housings. most times when you come to the swivel housing, this is all corroded and rusted. And of course there's a seal that keeps it clean and keeps the dust and water out. You've got your CV joint in here. You've got a very small seal that stops the oil from the differential coming into this CV joint housing here. So you're separating the grease and the oil. Sometimes you'll find that seal fails, and then you'll find this grease ends up in the diff oil. And normally you'll check that when you drain your diff oil and it's grey, you'll know the CV joint grease is actually permeated through into the diff oil, and that's not good because that wears the case hardening on the front, on the teeth of the differential. So this is the seal we always change. These little bearings on the top here, top and bottom, these are your pivot bearings, and the whole wheel turns on these. Now, it's difficult to see, but the bearings normally have lines running from top to bottom, and the reason they have that is because 90% of the time you're probably driving in a straight line, and that bearing knocks itself out. So if I take that small bearing and I turn it into the shaft, what's going to happen is this little bearing here, and I'll be able to feel it's notching. So if I turn it like this, I can feel it notching on the actual wear marks, because these rollers have actually over the time banged down and actually caused little grooves on that. So these are something you always change, plus all the seals and gaskets here, definitely that seal there. But while we strip this out, it's also to look at your CV joint. Now, when you're looking at a CV joint, we'd need to wash this out completely. We'd need to clean out all the grease so we can inspect inside. We pull it apart completely, and then we look at the wear inside here, and we also look at the wear on the splines to see both ends. The spline on the actual that goes into the differential, and the spline here for the end cap. So that's important to check, because these do take wear, and it's only through completely cleaning it can you get a proper inspection on what's happening in there. So like we have on the rear, we've got the front stub axles, and when you take these stub axles and clean them up and look at them, we can actually see the blue here. So this bluing is actually shown. There's a lot of heat has come through here from a bearing. The bearings sit on here, so the bearing will push onto here, and the two bearings, but there's been a lot of heat go through here, and that's worrying because the heat has probably also come, you get heat coming from your brakes, gets transferred to this whole housing. Of course the grease can deteriorate from the heat. It's important you use very good quality grease, should we say. But now that we've pulled this apart, we want to make sure that the bearings absolutely will run and not turn on these. And these are not too expensive to change. Again, we're going to look at the grooves. There's not a significant groove here. It's not too sharp. So the bearing hasn't eaten into the side here too much. But again, these are changeable. The determination of whether I change it or not is going to be looking for wear with the bearings going on here to see if they're worn. And if they are worn, again, the mileage on the truck often justifies changing them. And that's the concern. We've got a lot of blue there. So this is something we will definitely change. So now we're on the other side, the driver's side. And this is what we've noticed. They've actually welded the lower shock mount here. So this shock mount right from the bottom has got a weld all the way up here, all the way across, and it's obviously fractured this section off, and not really a great weld either. We need to understand whether this is actually needs to be re-welded stronger, and if we were in Africa and we had to make a repair, that's okay. You can fix these sort of things. You can weld them up and strengthen them, and it'll work. And again, if we had to decide we wanted to use this and it's properly welded, it's never ideal. I mean, it's a shock absorber mount, it's a safety element. Most ideal is to go, change the axle casing, because we've got these very significant, probably wear and tear from the shock absorber being broken. If a shock absorber bush goes and you keep driving it, that metal on metal pounding puts a lot of stress, and stress causes fractures. And when metal is old and tired, that stress fracture will eventually crack and break it, and that's exactly what's happened here. So it's really important to make sure that when you do your inspection on the car and you're looking at your shock absorbers, check the bushes. It's often that we find people's bushes are not in good condition. The lower bushes have knocked through, there's movement, you don't pick it up, and that vibration, that stress, that banging metal on metal transfers through all these little components, and you get something like this crack. Again, we'll check the bearings out in the hub, we'll look through the CV joints, we're going to wash these CV joints out, and we will check the stub axles to inspect them and make sure that the bearings are running properly on these surfaces. And if there's too much play, we'll change it. If it's still okay, no problem, we can reuse it.
The work to strip the Landcruiser is well underway. Most interesting, for me anyway, is the condition of the gearbox. It's unlikely to have ever been removed or serviced, and its wear patterns might reveal a little bit more about the history of our Landcruiser.
So now we're looking at the gearbox to really try and establish what would we look at on this particular gearbox. You know, Toyota, the Landcruisers have a range of different gearboxes, and the Troopy's box is not the strongest gearbox. There are some weak points in it, but generally to go through it, what is you gonna? If you can take us through your visual inspection, and then obviously we're gonna have to pull it apart, right, to see.
Well, you've informed me about the mileage of this one. It is quite high, and what I'm seeing compared to what I generally see, this one is very good, same as the condition of your diffs. The first thing I usually check is the very front tip of your input shaft or your spigot shaft that runs in the pilot bearing. That usually wears out to quite a hollow on high mileage vehicles. Yeah. This one is still perfectly smooth, even after all those miles. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, it hasn't been sleeved either.
Not at all, it's still original. The clutch dust's fairly normal for the mileage. I'm sure it must have had a clutch or two in its time. Then I'll also just rotate it a bit. Feel for knocking sounds, you know, hooking, roughness. This is perfectly smooth. Perfectly smooth. Another spot where we often, you know, get a good indication of the condition of the gearbox. These little pins where the gear lever locate, they become loose, sometimes even fall out. These are still perfectly tight. The seat that the gear lever rests on is in place, still intact. So far so good. And then the last thing we'll check is sometimes we get some play on the spline on the rear flange. And not on the flange, that play is actually on the front engaging gear. This is still perfectly tight. So I'm quite curious to disassemble this one to see what's going on inside. From the outside it looks very good.
It does. There was an oil leak obviously we spotted from here, so there is some play on this bearing. Yes. But that's not uncommon.
No, it's an ordinary little ball bearing that will wear with time.
Yeah.
But the oil leak, I think, is just the age of the oil seal. That little play shouldn't cause it to leak.
Really? Okay. Yeah. So that's one good reason when you take a gearbox out is to, I suppose, two things. You pull it apart to inspect it and see what's going on inside. You put new seals and gaskets at the very least. But the biggest thing for me is you give the confidence to the person to say your gearbox, which is an expensive, difficult to repair on the road, to find someone who's good to make the repair, you take that out of the equation. I need to know if I'm driving this car, and certainly for Andrew driving this car, that it is going to be reliable. You know, and if we only put seals and gaskets in, at least we've had the inspection with your experience.
Yes. There's no need to guess. We can inspect and be sure what's going on. What I expect to see, I might eat my words, because this gearbox and diffs have surprised me so far. I expect to see wear on the splines between the gearbox output shaft and the transfer input shaft. And I expect to see the fifth gear to be loose on the main shaft splines. Those are the two very common faults on these ones after prolonged use.
Sure.
Maybe they put in a new gearbox in this last year or something.
I don't know, it's just too good. I mean,
there was plenty of work done on this.
You know, this is...
Like I said, there's always head eating, but... Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion of what's actually going on here? This is the world, karma, making up 105 years. You know, the universe felt so guilty.
So sorry for you, Andrew. I think that's the bottom line. It's basically said, we're going to give you a really nice vehicle. You're not going to pay a lot for it.
Maybe you have another paperweights on the table.
Another paperweight?
Okay, we found a problem at last.
Oh, come on.
Okay.
So what have we found in here? Oh gosh, yeah. Wow.
These needle bearings run inside this idler gear in the transfer case, but the chrome surface where they run on have put it completely through on the idler gear. So we'll need a new one of those.
So that means Andrew has another paperweight for his office.
Indeed.
Whoa, okay, how am I going to explain this to you? Paperweight in my office. What he's talking about is this guy. Now, in 2019, when we built the 105 Cruiser, the transmission was, you know, if I say it was bad, I'm not even close. It was catastrophic. I'm getting there. It was so bad that somebody had decided that a full-time four-wheel drive vehicle was worse than a four-wheel. They had converted the 105 into a two-wheel drive by welding one of the center differential spider gears. And that is now a prized possession in my edit suite. And I think, looking at the condition of this gearbox, which was really, was the opposite of what the 105 was. The universe was saying to me, yes, Andrew, we know you wanted a story when you built your 105, so we made this wonderful story about this catastrophic conversion that somebody had done to the gearbox, and it cost a lot of money, also done by Cape Transmissions, to fix. And now they've given me something that is actually really rather good.
But would you say not unexpected on this mileage? I mean,
No, but compared to everything else, why only the one part?
Well, we're going to find out.
Yeah, this is one of those things where Sherlock Holmes shouldn't deduce too much. The inside of your transfer case, of course, that is your transfer input gear, on which we often see play on the splines. Now this one has a little bit, a very, very little bit of it. Usually we see a lot more, so that's good. Your transfer input gear turns your idler gear, of course, which sits there. And then your idler gear will turn simultaneously your high range and your low range gears, but obviously only one or the other is engaged at any time. So low range doesn't get used much. We do inspect it, the engaging teeth looks fine. And then high range, the little engaging teeth sometimes wear away, they lose their shape.
Sharp, yeah.
This has worked. Also the hub, you can see the splines are worn, but it doesn't necessarily justify a replacement.
No.
It's fairly normal to see those shiny marks.
So it's actually in really good condition. I mean, and with that as well, I mean, what we're looking at here is the transfer case will probably be okay with new gaskets and seals.
And idler gear.
Oh, we need to change that.
Idler gear and some bearings.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there is work to do.
Yes.
Okay, well, you know, for this mileage, we're doing well.
We are.
Right, the first indication of the wear between the transfer input shaft and the gearbox output shaft, there you go. It's a male and female spline that engage one another, and you can see there's clearly play. So in a couple of minutes, you'll see it exactly.
Work.
Just move all the
plastic bag where you want to
I might just put it on the plastic bag.
work in Hollywood.
Right. I think explain that, the weakness, and what's we're going to fit and why.
Okay. One of the weak spots on these gearboxes is where the transfer input gear fits to the transfer input shaft. they develop a play on the splines. This one is not so bad, but I can show you if I were to take it off. Those are the splines in there, and it runs in that part there. You can actually see the width of it, I would guess about 30-35 millimeters. They wear out. Terrain Tamer have come up with an innovation to attach the collar to the gear, and if I were to guess, about 3 times the amount of load-bearing splines. So this should actually last indefinitely.
When we did our inspection, this is where we found the oil leak on the transfer box. It's going to need to be repaired. You've got a leak, oil leak. Now looking in, you can see it's actually done a bit more damage, not just the oil seal.
Yes, we've removed the flange and the seal. The bearing is exposed. From the color, it looks like water contamination. And now with the flange removed, you can actually see how much play is in that ball bearing.
Yeah.
So that would cause your flange to flop about and your seal to move.
So quite often people are changing seals, but actually it's not actually the cause of the problem. It's, you know, good properly.
Yes, we've often seen it, especially on diffs with a collapsible spacer. People don't understand it. The whole pinion flops about, they just pop in another seal and they go off again and it just leaks again. Let me just get this back on the same spline that it was. There we go, what luck. So we've spoken about the wear on the back of the gearbox output shaft. There you can see it if you go to zoom in. And then of course the 5th gears that wear on their spline. I'll pull it back slowly so that you can actually see. Yeah, splines are exposed. They are slightly worn. We'll have to change the main shaft to the modified Terrain Tamer one with a much longer spline there anyway to make it stronger. And then if I were to demonstrate the 5th gear, I don't know if you can see in there, but we'll have a set of 3 splines, a gap, another 3 splines, a gap, another 3 splines, a gap. The upgraded gear from Terrain Tamer, this one here, you'll see has a full complement of splines, increasing its load bearing capabilities, and of course it will last longer. So we will probably upgrade to one of these. Other things we check on a gearbox would be your input shaft and cluster gear, 2 hardest working gears in the gearbox. Same as on the diffs, pit marks, dull marks, this looks fine. The other thing we'll inspect is the state of the synchronizers, the synchro cones. We'll measure the gap between this brass cone and its landing there. Just quick visual inspection, these looks fine, but they are, you know, wearable item and relatively inexpensive to replace. I would recommend that. And then one last thing on these ones, which is sometimes troublesome, there you can see it, this 5th gear has actually failed on the cluster shaft. The needle bearing on the inside is chewed into the cluster gear. So we will end up replacing the input shaft and cluster gear anyway. The overdrive 5th gear issues with so many modern things. The first thing to develop a problem, needle bearings, and then this 5th gear will fit over there, which was flopping about. The reason for that, you will see that the cluster shaft has worn away. It's actually hollow, it's narrower here than it's supposed to be, so this whole lay shaft will have to be replaced. And with regards to this thrust washer, they tend to wear into the cluster gear there and eventually break in half on these 2 weak spots where the locating pin goes in. Terrain Tamer have upgraded one of these as well, which is quite thicker and does the job. They don't break.
So pulling a gearbox apart, there's very few people who get to see the inside of the gearbox. And I think what we've seen with this gearbox, 500,000 kilometers, significant wear in the weak point areas. And what we found over time, that if you take it to a specialist who knows what they're doing, understands the weak points, they get addressed and they get fixed, and you get a great gearbox back. And that's important because over the years I've seen so many people take shortcuts on gearboxes. Quality of parts going into the gearbox, again, really important. Now, the company that is working with Andrew, Terrain Tamer, put together some amazing kits for the gearbox overhaul, the diff overhaul. And in front of me here I've got the kits for the differentials, we've got the 2 diff kits, and of course we've got the gearbox kit. Now, to anyone rebuilding a gearbox, when you get all these parts, that you don't have to go and order all these parts separately. It's given to you right down to the packet of little sprayers and washers and plastic bits. To the spacer, that's the original spacer, this is the upgraded one. It makes such a difference to rebuilding the gearbox. And that's where we've come to the point that if you're going to do this with this amount of wear, do it properly. And here's exactly what we can do. You know, you don't have to use a complete kit like this, but when you get it, it gives everything. And you know that once you've replaced all these parts, for the extra cost, it's been done properly. And you don't have to look at it again.
So we're going to weld inside, outside. Always on the weld next to it is the weakest point.
We've taken the axle off to have a close look at the welding that has been done on it. Paul, can you explain what we have done?
So what happened here is this actual lower mount on the axle here broke. So it's cracked, basically cracked through here, through this hole, around and all the way down here. Now, just really to show, it was repaired. They did weld it. But of course, most people, when they weld, don't always clean it out. And what the guys here have done is they've gone and ground out the weld all the way through, made a V, a gully, so that when they weld, they can actually fill that gully in to give it a bit more strength. So they'll weld this all back up, okay? But over and above that, we're going to strengthen this. So really what we're saying is it did have a weak point, we've welded it, but if we strengthen it, I can promise you this will not be the weak point anymore. If we look at this side, the ball on that side is much cleaner. We're going to clean this up some more. So we've actually got this here where the dust seals and that rub, which really shows that this is in really good condition. The rest of the axle is perfect. So why waste this axle when we can actually make a repair here? We can strengthen it and actually it will last. So there's nothing wrong with repairing something if you can do it properly.
Why would you say that there is that is in better condition than this?
So what we're seeing here is we're seeing this corrosion that's built in here, which is probably a bit of a rust that's set in here. A lot of this will clean away. There's a bit of pitting here. And this is from the result of the sand, the water, the dust, the mud that's collected under the seals over time. People don't change these bearings often enough. They don't clean this out and change these seals. These seals wear with time. So if you've done a big trip, strip down the whole knuckle, check your bearings, they're often knocked out, put new bearings in, clean this up, and you'll prolong the life of your front axle. The same of checking the CV joint and the little seal that separates the CV grease from the oil in the diff is also worthwhile changing on a regular basis. And again, we've picked up the crack here, which we'll weld and fix up. Now, if a repair is done properly, there's nothing wrong with making a repair, as long as it's done properly. So taking the axle out, welding this up, it's not going to change anything on the axle. So all good. Saves us an axle. Yeah. Okay, so we've got wheel bearing kits from Terrain Tamer. These kits actually have a hardened bearing, so it's actually stronger than most normal bearings. And again, they were designed for use in the mines, and they also improved the seal. Now, most seals, you push the seal into the hub, and then it's the inner part of the seal, the lip on the seal actually turns on the stub axle. And generally you find, like we've seen on our stub axles here, there's a line, a groove all the way around. The dust and dirt has crept into that lip, formed a bit of grinding paste, and over time it just eats away the stub axle. And that's of course what means that in time we've got to either change that whole rear axle, because the stub axles are not changeable on the Landcruisers, or you go to a seal like this, which is slightly different, where the inner part stays fixed and the outer part actually moves with the hub. So what's quite nice about that is that this no longer becomes critical. It's got a nice flat surface which grips across that whole area where the normal lip would sit, and then this part going into the hub, and then the seal turns within the seal. So it gives an even better seal to keeping the water and dust out of the grease. So really, really good situation. I like that. I like the fact that you get all the gaskets, which is great. And of course with the heavy duty wheel bearings, it's going to be really nice to fit these. What we will do is we'll do a test fit of both the bearings to see that they're not loose on the stub axle. If you push the bearing on and this inner race is too loose, you can basically take it and move it. We're not going to fit it. Then that's going to come to a point when you change the rear axle. But if it pushes on and it's still nice and firm, you can always put a bit of bearing lock in here, like a sealant that glues it on. Push that on with the bearings, and then the bearings will stay in a good position without the inside part of the bearing turning. So then we'll have a good solution. And of course, managing the bearings and looking after them is about maintenance. So pulling the bearings apart, depending on where you drive, how long you drive for, or you're going through a lot of water crossings, that determines how often you check the bearings. So to pull a bearing apart, check it, re-grease it, pop on a new seal, that's just maintenance. Okay, so here's our stub axle. Generally what happens is the bearings, when they come a little bit loose and they're not tensioned properly. So when you come to test a wheel bearing, normally you take the top and bottom of the wheel and you try and rock it backwards and forwards to see if there's any play on the bearings. And what you're trying to do is see whether these bearings have been adjusted tight enough so there's absolutely no play. Now on the rear, with a long axle shaft, it's quite difficult to actually pick that up. You can sometimes take the wheel and try and pull it backwards and forwards and see if there's any play. And what often I find happens is the bearings have a little bit of play on them. This inner race of the bearing then starts rubbing against the shoulder here, and often we find that it eats away the shoulder here. So it actually makes the whole thing worse because the inside race of the bearing is loose, it's turning on the stub axle, it's eating away the shaft, and of course then eventually it gets to a point where you can't do anything about that. You've got a very sharp edge there, it's eaten into it, and you end up having to swap out the axle. So with a new type of seal that Terrain Tamer do, the actual inner part of the seal will sit on that surface there, and that doesn't turn. The actual seal turns within the seal. So that means that that's not critical anymore. What we're going to do is just push the bearings on to see. This bearing's got quite a nice tight fit. I'm not going to press it on all the way. Okay, so that I'm happy with this bearing. It's actually, although the old bearing was loose, this one actually is going to go on very nicely, and actually, yeah, she's okay. So I'm happy with that. We'll put a bit of bearing lock in there, and we'll do the same with this one. And again, it's not loose. I'm happy enough that both these bearings with a bit of bearing lock I think will be good enough to run without us having to change this axle. Well, we've had a great job here done by Samuel. He has re-welded the original crack, and then he's made a complete support all the way around with some flat bar, and then gone and stitched it, welded it, should I say, all the way. So we've welded on top, we've welded underneath, and we've got a support bracket all the way around. This is stronger than that side. That's such a good take on what people don't check, you know. How many times people have driven through the bush, come back, and they never go and look. There's a little bit of foam here. They never actually pull it back to look. And you see this, and what it does for the engine overheating, it's sacrilege. Oh wow. Did you find the mouse? No, but there's a nest there. There's a mouse somewhere there.
So here we see the natural habitat of the African monarch butterfly. I've seen them in the bush, most of them in better condition than this one. I must say the whole thing is pretty seamless. I actually took yesterday afternoon off because I was feeling unwell. I think something I ate. I come back this morning and just so much has happened. I'm sorry I missed part of it actually. Like for example replacing the timing belt and the water pump.
When we start taking the radiator out, we've also found on the power steering pipes, the pressure pipe starts leaking. You can basically buy the whole unit from Toyota, but it is quite expensive. So, but yeah, we can take it to any hydraulic place and they make up 2 new pressure pipes for us on the old steel pipes. And yeah, it's a fraction of the price. So,
and I think that's what's important for people to understand. You know, when you're looking at repairing a car, there are ways when you can do as good a job repairing a hose like that and save a lot of money. So that will definitely be done. I mean, this radiator we looked at, besides the fact that there's a bird's nest on the other side.
Yeah, but the scary part is if you inspect a car with this radiator, you look through the cowling into the fan and you feel it feels brand new. Because there's an aircon radiator on the other side, you will see this. It's also nice and clean, but if you turn it around, you get surprises.
Yep.
And you get real surprises when you take one of them out, and now you wonder why your car is overheating, because there's no airflow.
Yeah.
So on my drive down, I was getting cooling from about not less than well under 50%.
When you start cleaning this out, 9 out of 10 times this core is weak from all the water and
well,
corrosion.
it traps the water here, and then it rots the core away.
Yeah, it's funny we didn't find a mouse now.
I know, we're looking. So with a cooling system taking such a critical role in the vehicle's life, if this is something you can afford, you put it in, or you repair your radiator, you make sure your radiator is in very good condition. And you don't just stop there, you look at the hoses, you look at the water pump, the thermostat, the radiator cap. And it's really important that you go through the entire system to make sure that the complete system holds the integrity, the pressure and the strength. So no weaknesses in the system, because one weak pipe, one pipe you missed, that's the pipe that'll blow and you lose your water.
So yesterday we spoke about the EGT pipe that was more made for the European weather, but in our hot climate the EGT actually clogs the oil in the air up and becomes like tar. You can see on your camshaft cap that is literally tar. And inside here you can see it on your intake pipe and inside the intake.
Inside the intake, yeah.
So, yeah.
So I have a question, would a catch can solve this problem?
Yes, it will. And we blanked the EGR pipe off, so the exhaust gas can't go into the engine. But yeah, EGT definitely will help for that, just to take the fumes out of the air.
Catch can.
Catch can.
Yeah. And then based on mileage, we always look at certain criteria. Now, cam belt, the cam belt that runs from the top and ties the bottom of the engine together, it's critical. And if that cam belt has to snap, you say goodbye to your engine. So it's a practice that when we take a car in and it's going to do long mileage, based on when the cam belt and water pump were changed, we will then change the water pump, change the cam belt, and make sure that those two items are absolutely in good condition. Because the last thing you want is for a water pump to fail, to start leaking. And although your car might not have done the mileage, it might have sat around for many years. And you're going to see on the water pump we took out of here that you get sediment collection in the actual water pump. And if we look at this water pump here, you can see you've got this calcification buildup, these little bits. Now this is often from lack of antifreeze in the engine, and the antifreeze does a number of roles. The antifreeze is there to cool the engine, it's there to lubricate the water pump, it's there to stop rust inhibitors, reduce the overheating properties. So your antifreeze provides, and stop it from freezing. Well, not here, but in some places. Yeah, in some places, you're right. But what people don't do is change the antifreeze often enough. And so again, you pick up this type of calcification, and these little bits come loose, then they can go through the seal, and then your water pump starts leaking, and then you'll find that, well, it's not leaking yet, but it starts leaking, and you get little telltale signs of the water leaking. Well, here we've got power steering pipe we've had repaired. As we said, it's gone to a hydraulic specialist. They've probably made pipes that are going to last longer than these pipes. And they've done a really nice job. So there's nothing wrong with repairing these sort of pipes. And as you can see, they're strong, they're well done, and they will last. So yeah, they're going to fit these back, and then we're going to fit the radiator.
Ja, sorry. Petrus.
Add the diff breathers, but for the moment all the brakes have been done. Got a new master cylinder on the clutch and a new slave cylinder.
Oh, good.
Now the masters are normally pretty good and yours was probably fine. The slaves are pretty much always change because I found the slave cylinders do wear, and if it goes you don't have a clutch.
Yeah.
And they're not an expensive item. So as one of the kind of Achilles heels, just put a new slave in. Keep the old one as spare if you want, but certainly we've done both. But the master was still okay on this one. But you never know. 500,000 kilometers, the seals are tired. You know, the same in the brake master cylinder. We haven't stripped it and redone it. It would be something if there was a sign of a problem that you go, you know what, let's just pull it apart and put new seals in.
So that's we haven't changed that?
We haven't changed the brake master.
The master.
All the rest of the brakes have been done.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, braided hoses, upgraded brake discs.
Okay.
The brake booster.
But you say the clutch, master and slave have been done?
have been done. But normally you could easily take those units and instead of putting brand new units in, take it to a hydraulics place, they refurbish them, put new seals in, and you can fit a kit. Same as when you're traveling. If you were going to do, you know, extended, let's say, year trip, just carry the kits for the brake and master and slave. And even the calipers. They're small parts, they're rubber seals, they don't cost a lot. But if you had a problem, you could easily repair it. Unless, of course, in the master cylinder, it's pitted with rust.
Yes.
And that happens because people don't flush the brake fluid out. So every year, brake fluid renew, clutch fluid renew, and you shouldn't ever have problems with rust in the system. And that's just lack of maintenance.
So what we've fitted here is the uprated alternator. So this is a big improvement on the standard alternator. It takes it up to 120 amps. And that's going to definitely help us with improving the battery ability for the alternator to deliver power charges into the batteries, the main battery and the auxiliary batteries. Again, also, this car's done, we don't know, but 500,000 kilometers on the old alternator. Being such a critical component to the vehicle electrics and of course your auxiliary electrics, it just makes good sense to change that. So again, we're looking at critical components. The air conditioning system, we've removed the gas from it, we've taken the aircon condenser out, but when that gets cleaned and put back in, it'll all get checked, tested, vacuum pressure tested, and then new oil put in. They'll put new oil in, so it gets a complete service on the air conditioning system. We do change the idler pulley, which actually is the adjuster for the aircon. We change these so often. What ends up happening, it's got a very small bearing. People adjust a squeaking aircon belt by just making this tighter and tighter. And what that does, it puts a lot of pressure on a very small bearing till eventually this bearing will start to fail or fail completely. And if it's unchecked and untested, comes off and makes a huge mess in the fan and the front of the engine here, often damaging the radiator.
So there is the gearbox, all completed, very exciting, and of course the terrain tamer heavy duty clutch. I've decided not to go with the fortified clutch. The engine doesn't produce enough power for that clutch, in my opinion, to work well. It's perfect for very heavy duty use, but that will be perfectly adequate for this application and this engine. Now the brake upgrade on this, as we mentioned before, we could have gotten away with what we had because it wasn't in bad condition, but in my Australia trip carrier I have exactly the same brake upgrade and the double diaphragm booster, and the brakes on that car are fantastic. They're really, really fantastic. So I thought, well, why not? Why shouldn't I do that? I want that performance.
I am fitting the exact same spring configuration as I did in my latest Australian troop carrier. That's their smart spring. It's basically a progressive coil spring in the front, and the parabolics with exactly the same rating at the back I think the weights of these two vehicles will be similar. The team is well into the mechanical refurbishment. What can I do while they busy themselves? Well, firstly, I can look at the seats. The seat is broken. They were removed early on, and I can also try and sort out the load bay. I have decided on a name. I don't give my cars names, generally speaking. Well, I have in the past, but I've decided on it. I've got a really good name for this one. I mean, I remember my Range Rover was called Lodi from the Creedence Clearwater Revival song, and also because it could carry a load. It couldn't carry one very well, but it could carry a load. And my Land Rover 110 was called Darien. But I have got I mean, just looking at this, I have got a great name for this Landcruiser. Hello, Paul.
Andrew, morning. How are you? All good?
I was just telling my lovely viewers here, I've decided on a name.
What is it?
I'm not going to tell you that. I will tell you in a minute. But here's the clue. Can you see the clue? The clue is actually in this.
The name of the car.
You're going to jump over there, and I'm going to pull this out.
And that's going to give us the name. It's written underneath here.
Almost.
Okay, right, let's see. I think they made enough holes in this thing. Should we count all the holes?
We could count all the holes, but I can tell you now that there were 8 seats with 4 bolts each, and they obviously moved some of them because. So I'm calling the car Colin.
Colin.
Colander.
It's going to be interesting when Andrew does a drive in the dust because we've got a lot of holes to fill in. There's screwed plates, bolted seats in. Gosh, yeah.
And there are holes even in the wheel arch. They've got holes in them.
So Andrew, besides the holes, which was probably for irrigation, because when I looked in here, you've got a farm of...
A couple of weeks ago, my second day with the car, I discovered what looked like a flower box with washers and nuts.
It's about this deep in soil. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
That's incredible. I mean, the amount of dust in there.
Don't ask me what it is. I don't know what it is.
And probably the other side when we pull this off. So I'm wondering what they were growing in the back here. But, you know, the thing is with Troopies, if you can get all the cavities cleaned out, that's where they normally rust, behind the back wheels. They rust like crazy if you get water in there.
I'm driving this on a test run, and I don't want to drive with these holes in the floor if I can help it. So what I thought I'd do now is get some soapy water and clean this out.
Yeah.
And then run some sound insulation, sound deadening mat, which is that rubber, and that's really good for sealing. Really good for sealing these holes. One, just in this square foot, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in that square foot.
Okay, I'm reckoning we've got about 75 holes here.
59.
Okay, let's see. Keep sticking.
It's just any old number.
We'll fill 2 holes.
I've got far more interesting things to tell you.
Really?
Come here. I've just counted the holes in the back of the troop carrier, in the back of Colin.
Who's buying who beer?
I'm going to buy you beer. You are far closer than me.
Wow. Okay. So how many holes were there? How many holes?
107.
107.
The seats obviously have been recovered. Not particularly well, and they're in bad shape. The mechanics underneath. So what do I do about a replacement? I could spend a lot, buy some steel man seats or Recaro, but that's very expensive. That's not budget. That goes against the budget bill. So what do? I need to find replacement seats, ideally.
Almost. That's your lucky coin.
At my 5 rand coin, I am going to retire. And the pollen filter?
This is the pollen. That's came out of the factory. So then we, most of the times, the cartridge itself gets wet from condensation. The dust forms like blood, and then it blocks the whole system and the flow.
But that's obviously not what's happened here.
No, because this hasn't a proper filtering. The dust goes through. With the terrain table on, it will stop everything.
Yeah, no, that's far better.
This is a much better upgrade than.
That pitching, it looks like somebody's been striking a welder.
Yeah.
What is that, do you think?
Well, you know, it looks very difficult to tell that had an accident. Well, I can't tell you why that would be, unless it had a dent and someone's used that to actually rectify that damage there. But if we look carefully, there'll be signs of an accident if there was. The lines are very straight. You know, normally the guys don't get those lines nice and straight together. They pull it out as much as they can. They fill it with filler on the outside. If there was, it might have been a slight dent. But when I look at the lines, and you know, this is factory fitted. This hasn't been changed. It looks really good. So if it had a small dent, then they've used that to pull it out. But they've done it well.
What do you think those marks are?
Accident.
What do you mean by that?
It was a knock on the fender. Then they heated up to shrink the metal. That's why this is also bent. That's why you've got aftermarket lights on.
Okay.
So we actually found when you open up, we found the only problem. It's not bad. It looks good all of this.
So these vents here let a lot of dust in, and what I tend to do with them is when we do the build, we'll take them off and we'll put a plate on there and seal it up, because your water tank will sit across here. We use this cavity space for the water tanks when we do the build, which is quite nice. And then we take the original covers off and we put an aluminium cover which gets riv nutted to the side here. So it gives a lot of strength, and obviously the cavities get all cleaned out, and often the rear lights let a lot of dust in, so we'll make sure that those are sealed up. And then once that's done, we'll look at all the door rubbers will be changed. Change all the door rubbers, and we add an extra rubber seal on this lip all the way around, and across the bottom here. Yeah, this is tired, but that's fine. You know, you get a nice rubber seal that goes all the way around, and it just gives the door an extra seal. And without having the wheel on the back door, the door doesn't flex. So, you know, you save the hinges, the door seals much better.
I have some good news regarding the seats. So there they are there. Pretty cool, eh? All the bits and pieces. And what Hubert has done for me is rebuilt 2 seats from a 76. Outstanding. Long term though, I might change the seats, but that's a very expensive upgrade. And I will decide how necessary it is, I think probably after my first trip in it, long trip in it. I survived driving it all the way down from Pretoria to Cape Town, and yeah, I had a little bit of backache, but it wasn't that bad. And well, we'll see. I'm not sure if I want to spend that much money on the budget build.
At this time in the rebuild process, we're going to rewind just a little bit. Just before the gearbox was stripped, the front and rear differentials were also taken apart and inspected. So Ulrich and Paul will now present differential care and repair.
So Ulrich, your many years of experience building diffs and gearboxes, and I really value your insights. Now we've taken both diffs out. We do it on all the vehicles that we're building up for overland travel, and we do an inspection, which you're going to do today, and go through and tell us what would you look for and what would you consider replacing if it's needed, because you can always rebuild a diff. Yes. And there's some improvements we can do, like a solid spacer. So we've got our rear diff here. Tell us what you'd look for and check.
Well, generally speaking, we'll look at the main things first. Your main 2 gears in a diff would be your ring gear and your pinion there.
Yeah.
We will check the back of each tooth. The drive side, we'll look for dull marks, dings, and especially pit marks. In this case, it's got a smooth finish right through on the drive side and the coast side. This ring gear looks very good.
Okay.
I wouldn't deem this necessary to replace. The next thing we will check, we'll strip it further at a later stage and inspect the planetary gears. But for the time being, I can just stick my fingers in there and rotate them. Also, I don't see any broken teeth or pitted teeth on these that are visible. And also the amount of lash between them is not bad at all. And then the last thing we can check in this state, of course, is just to feel for roughness on the bearings. This one, it's obviously not new. The bearings get preloaded at assembly, and you can see this does not have much preload left, just because of the age. But no roughness, and then we can check a little bit of backlash by holding the ring gear and just wiggling the pinion about that is your backlash, which seems fairly normal between the ring and pinion on this one. Good practice to replace bearings, of course, considering not being a new vehicle. That's basically a very basic inspection of a diff once been removed from the vehicle.
Okay, and being the rear diffs, you have a different type of spacer. You get the collapsible and you get the solid spacer.
Yes.
And in the bush, if you have a leaking seal, which can happen on a diff breather that blocks or something like that, changing the seal is very difficult if someone doesn't know how to set up the collapsible spacer.
Yes.
So what's your advice in that scenario?
Yes, a collapsible spacer or a crush spacer can only be used once.
Yeah.
It's basically a piece of pipe which you crush until the bearings, reach the landing surface at the correct load, and then you stop. So as you say, if you ever need to replace a pinion seal, the whole diff needs to be disassembled, a new collapsible spacer fitted, preloaded, and it's not really a roadside repair.
Yeah.
So we recommend replacing the collapsible spacer with a solid spacer conversion, which then simplifies things a lot. You simply loosen the nut, take the flange off, replace the seal, and tighten it again, and you're on your way.
So that's really worthwhile. And once we pull this out, we've inspected this, so there's no leaks, there's nothing wrong. We could make a decision, you know what, depending on how you're going to use the vehicle, how far you're going to drive, you might just put this back in and go, you know what, I've inspected everything. Mm-hmm. Your mileage is not too severe, you're using it for weekends. When you've got some money, you can rebuild it. But I'm going to tell you, this car's got almost 500,000 kilometers on it.
Looks very good for that.
So that's amazing, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought you'd be surprised.
Yes.
So that's what we find, you can never tell when you take a vehicle. You'll know that when you've pulled some diffs out, 100, 150,000, they're really badly worn. Mm-hmm. And what's contributing to the bad wear and tear of a diff?
The main thing, your lubrication. Every 60,000 kilometers, I'd recommend changing the diff oil, generally servicing. Yeah. But of course, you and I have spoken about it in the past. If you're prone to water crossings on your weekend adventures, water tends to get into a diff, break down the oil, and then the metal fails.
Yeah.
So regular oil changes on a diff will make it last a long time. And of course, a diff does not like a shock load. If you suddenly release your clutch to get over an obstacle or something, you can actually break the teeth right off. But in terms of wear and tear, I'd say the only thing you can do to avoid accelerated wear and tear is regular oil changes, and of course a good quality oil.
Yes, exactly. Here we've got our front diff, and it's going to be interesting to compare it to the back. So what are you finding more problematic on front diffs or not?
Front diffs, well, depending, if it's a full-time 4x4, your front diff works just as much as your rear diff.
Exactly, yeah.
But in this case, I don't think it is. So this rests most of the time, except for when you're engaged in four-wheel drive. So it should have a lot less, wear on it. It's worked a lot less. Mm. But comparing it to that one, it's also in perfect condition. It doesn't even seem as if the oil has gone dirty yet.
No.
So, surface of the teeth are beautiful. This one I can't really check the planetary gears, not much space for my fingers. Yeah. But you can just see the cleanliness of it, the shininess. There's no pit marks, no dings, dents, dull spots, nothing of the sort. It's in great condition.
Yeah, so typically if we'd inspected this, I found sometimes when you drain the oils on the diffs, you'll find where the CV grease has come through and then changes the coloration.
Yes.
And then you'll see that can damage the case hardening on the teeth.
Yes, when the grease and the oil mixes, it also breaks down the oil.
Yeah,
and there's not what they call extreme protection anymore, extreme pressure protection.
Sure. But that's a case of a maintenance. If people are traveling with their vehicles and every 5,000 kilometers you check your oils, you'll pick something like that up. And that's important.
Depending on your use, if you just drive to work and back in the suburbs every day, you can extend those periods of inspection. But if you use your vehicle off-road, dusty conditions, water, extreme temperatures, do it more often.
Yes, exactly. So again, with these, if we were advising someone, would we do a whole lot of work on these? The only advantage is to pull them apart, is to put the collapsible spaces. You're going to check all the bearings. If they were in really good condition, you go, you know what, do we change them? When you've gone to that point of pulling it apart, you might as well change the bearings.
Depending on your intended use.
Exactly, I think that's the key point.
If you're going on a sub-Saharan trip of 10 or 20,000 kilometers and you really want to avoid any possibility of a breakdown, replace the wearable items. If you are going to do 10,000 kilometers a year, don't.
Yes, and I think that's where we're trying to establish, when people spend money on these vehicles, this mechanical side can get very, very expensive.
Yes.
And by the time you're rebuilding your diffs, you're rebuilding your gearbox, the budgets run away, and then you're still trying to kit a vehicle out. And that's where you've got to make a call. Exactly in this scenario, if someone came to us and said, we're doing weekends, we're going to be doing 2-3 weeks to Botswana, these would be perfect to leave as they are. They're not leaking, there's nothing wrong with them. But if you wanted to upgrade to the solid spacers, and would you recommend the solid spacer for towing?
Yes,
definitely.
It also makes an impact on what I spoke about earlier, the shock load. If you have heavy loads and through acceleration and deceleration, it sometimes compresses the collapsible space and your pinion becomes loose, causing damage to your ring gear and pinion.
Yes. And the same with the prop shafts. So on most vehicles, when we pull them out, the prop shafts have got either tight universal joints or they're worn. And again, they're not balanced over a period of time. And I found that that's another precaution. Put a nice balanced prop shaft with good universal joints in, properly greased up. You're looking after these components, which are really expensive.
We don't see it often, but a poorly balanced prop shaft can cause damage to your diff pinion bearings.
So now comes the point where we've fitted everything and we do the test start.
Yes.
Think it'll start?
I hope so.
All the fluids are in, antifreeze, power steering oil. The oil is in.
Because I want to go on a test drive and then I return to my home in Australia, what they've done to this vehicle in 5 days actually would normally take 3 to 4 weeks. It's actually an incredible achievement.
Did you test the injectors and the glow plug?
Not yet, because that takes some time. So we can send the injectors away, and what we'll do is we'll remove the injectors, send them off to a diesel specialist. It's a job that still need to be done, but just for the time constraints for this week, we haven't done it.
The last hour or so have been pretty hectic. I've arranged a meet and greet at the Terrain Tamer headquarters in Cape Town, and we only have a couple of hours before we've got to be there.
So the roof rack is about to come off, and I'll explain why I'm taking the roof rack off, because I'm actually going to find another roof rack and put it on. I do need a roof rack. I just don't want this one.
Explained in a future video, I'm not fitting a roof conversion to begin with, but instead my roof rack will mount a series of solar panels, and I need a long narrow space on which to carry my instant ground tent. But more of that later. So I found some interior panels they had lying around, so they're swapping them out for me.
have fitted manually locking front hubs. There's no reason to fit a manually locking front hub unless the driver of the vehicle doesn't understand how the automatic ones work. Yes, automatic ones will engage four-wheel drive both in forward and reverse gears. However, when in the auto settings, they're not particularly strong. And that's the problem, because if you don't understand that they're not as strong in the auto settings, you might do heavy-duty off-road work with them in the auto settings and they might break. So a lot of people modify this to the manual ones because the manual ones are stronger than the auto ones when the auto ones are left in auto.
You checked the bleed.
Hubert will now take it out for a test run. And so while he does that, I want to show something to you that I've actually been wanting to show you since I drove into the Snymans 4x4 workshop 5 days ago. For those of you who like to do your own DIY electrical installations, I want to give you something that will warm the cockles of your heart. Look at this. Hubert told me that the client specifically requested, please don't touch any of my electrics. I know exactly what's going on. Man, that's impressive. The fact that this car isn't a rusty, burnt out wreck is in itself as remarkable as how bad that is.
Say Troopy, 1, 2, 3!
So today I get to show it off to the public for the first time and a meet and greet, but I also have the satisfaction of knowing that I have a fully functioning troop carrier in South Africa, and I can safely leave it here in Paul's hands to turn it into an Overlander. But more of that later. Much more.
We've got some very nice Troopies and a whole Troopy group and a Palomino tray top camper. Actually a really nice turnout from the guys that come through. Always nice to see different vehicles, and sponsored by Terrain Tamer.
Ahead of me are the mountain ridge that divides the Cape flatlands with the desert. This is where the weather changes. This mountain range actually changes the weather. The other side of them is desert, and I have to pay a toll. One toll I don't mind paying because I'm going to save about an hour on my journey by going in a tunnel under the mountain. I'm actually really excited about this little trip. Really enjoying myself. Just a brilliant week. I'm out of the mountains. Isn't that a beautiful view? So my fans in Western Australia, these are mountains. So these actually run to about 5,000 feet above sea level, and the valley height is about between 3,500 and 4,000 feet is the valley height. Yeah. Don't worry, I'm not going to start singing. Although I feel like singing because I've woken up in an extremely good mood this morning. Took the Troopy out and reached our little destination. We're going to spend the weekend here. It's in a place called Bonnievale, which is not very far from Cape Town. I think I've already mentioned, although that might have been in a previous video. And well, I wanted to show you our temporary fix-it for our Troopy here. This is how we're travelling now. Somebody donated a genuine Toyota floor thing for the car, and of course all of these have been replaced. They're all actually from a troop carrier that was built into a camper, and those were taken off, so they were donated to us. And well, what can I say? I've got me a new Troopy, and mechanically it's fantastic.
Engine sweet, gearbox sweet, clutch. You can feel that it's the heavy duty clutch. It's a bit firmer on the foot. It's not hard to push down. I can just feel there's a difference. Brakes, fantastic. And the seats, well, as far as Toyota seats can go, great. Actually, comfortable with those seat covers. Fantastic. What else? Okay, we're going to fiddle and play today. Just do stuff. What I really mean by do stuff is, well, chill after the exhausting week behind me and enjoy the Landcruiser. Later today, we're going to take it on a short off-road drive. If the weather stays bright, then I'm sure it'll be easy. But if it rains, well, I don't hold out much hope for those terrible tyres that I'm running. We're joined by some close friends, and we've decided to start by an American-style breakfast. Gwyn, you should be ashamed of yourself. That is disgusting.
I know. I feel like I'm at a kid's birthday party.
What did you buy?
Orkies for ontbijt. Pap. My Afrikaans is very rusty, but it is coming back. If I stayed here for any length of time, I would be back speaking Afrikaans again, but it's been 10 years. And if you don't use the language, it goes.
What we're doing?
We're at a beautiful little self-catering farm in a place called Bonnievale in the Western Cape, and we're going up to the dam. Hey, keep this wheel away from my toes. Yo, 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 I'm in the brambles. All this for the sake of art, it's insane. Oh, my toes.
Stop.
I'm stuck. I'm well and truly stuck in the bramble, between the brambles and the car. You're going to have to go forward.
I think I'm back a little bit.
Whose idea was this? This is insanity. Whose idea was this, Quentin? It better be amazing up there.
You want to venture in Africa? This is what we do.
For those who don't know, Quentin is Kate, my daughter Kate's husband's dad. So his family, which explains an enormous amount of what's going on here.
I know you can't see the wheels, but what's happening here is that I've completely lost traction on both front and back axles. So I'm going to use a rocking technique to try and get back, and then approach the very, very slight little hump that it got stuck in slightly faster. This is why we changed the tyres. These have no grip at all. None. Absolutely none. It's quite embarrassing. Okay?
Well, at least you haven't shed blood.
No, we'll work with them. We'll work with these stupid tyres, and we'll get up here without locking the diff locks, because that's my thing.
I like the way he just ignores my comment about shedding blood. I mean, I will show you when we get to the top of this confounded hill, the blood that I've shed, all in the interests of getting these photographs, these moving images for you guys. I hope you appreciate what goes into this whole filmmaking lark.
Alright, bye. I'm going to try and get up there without stopping.
Have fun.
I think I've got grip. Right here I've got grip, I think. Let's try. Again.
If you could just smell the rubber.
Thank you for shedding blood and stuff. Okay.
Okay, you can come and film the back of my skirt and my... Come, show. I need lots of nice things said about me in the comments. And anybody who said why I wasn't driving, I asked the same question. See, blood, brambles, wounded. In the interests of art.
What do you think of that rubbish?
That was great. I'm not moaning.
We are clearly the only ones that come up here.
Clearly. Oh, dear me. Good stuff. Right, onward and upward.
Yeah, there's a tyre shop at the top there. I think we're going to stop them out. Well, I didn't expect this. I asked Quentin if this was a difficult track and he said, nah. And so sometimes having bad tyres and not using the diff locks actually makes life more interesting.
Indeed.
If we'd had good tyres, we'd just
walked up it.
Can't crawl. Normally I just crawl up the hill. Can't. I cannot crawl up the hill. I just the wheels want to spin. They want to spin out. Even this is a completely dry section. It isn't even that lumpy. Down and
Yay!
It's starting to rain already.
We're praying that we get rained in, so we've got to stay here another night. We're due to go back to Somerset West tomorrow. But the Weather Bureau has forecasted biblical weather. So we're praying for floods and monsoons, aren't we?
Yes, but we're going to stock up with a bit of food first.
Certainly not at the top of this mountain, but yeah.
This has been an incredible 4 weeks for us. Collecting the Landcruiser in Pretoria, doing a little bit of work on it, driving it all the way across South Africa, and now having spent a week completing the mechanical refurbishment, which also served the purpose of enabling me to say, yes, this Landcruiser, as old as it is worth investing in. While Gwyn and I must now say goodbye to South Africa until April 24, when we will revisit to take our Landcruiser on its first proper wilderness expedition, I will be leaving it in the care of Paul Marsh, who will be doing the conversion into a camper, and as he does so, I will be posting regular videos on the progress.
So I think this is the time where we actually fly a flag to say we've reached the summit.
Yes, we have. We've reached the summit.
Wave a hat.
Nice, eh?
Celebration.
Cheers.